So this is how you set up a live stream on your PlayStation. It's pretty simple. I have my cell phone here with the PlayStation app, and I also have my laptop ready. Got hotkey. AR bots, camera setup. What we're looking for is the AR Studio. Use the app to turn off the studio music and flip the camera around, and that's it.
Like this mystery is brought to you by the letter P. You like P? I have a whole rap. No, I don't like P. Pastor Church. Do you listen to rap music? No. So here we are reviewing Hopsin, Ill Mind, number 7. More N-words and F-bombs. Really? What's up, Misfits? We are back again. So last time we did Joyner Lucas, I'm Not Racist. If you haven't seen that, and go and check it out. And that leads us to right now, which we are reviewing Hopsin, Ill Mind, number 7.
Whatever that means.
More N-words and F-bombs.
Really?
Yeah.
I get my ears cleaned, I guess, afterwards.
Alright, here we go. Ill Mind, Hopsin, number 7.
See how pastors react to Hopsin talking about why he don't think God is real anymore. The video is beautiful, the lyrics are fucking powerful, and Hopsin is one of my favorite underrated artists. Yo, the dude is a beast. Motherfucker, you just don't give him credit. You just don't get the fucking credit.
Anybody I might along. Life is a tour, I sit and ride along. Taking some notes and then I write the song. Staring down the road, my life is gone. Is this where I belong? Is it wrong to not believe in right and wrong? My mental state is fucking me up, and I cried upon while asking you for some answers, but we don't have that type of bond. Now my desire's gone with the way that I've been living lately. If I died right now, you turn the fire on. Sick of this bullshit. Niggas call me a sellout, cause I hopped in Christianity so strongly, then I fell out. Now I'm avoiding questions like a scared dog with his tail down. Feeling so damn humiliated cause they looking at me like I'm hellbound. What story should I tell now? I'll just expose the truth. I'm so close to the fucking edge, I should be close to you. But who the fuck are you? You never show the proof. And I'm only fucking human, yo, what am I supposed to do?
Well, it sounds like in a pretty rough state.
Yep, it's like a prayer. He's talking to God and telling him his frustrations.
Right, yeah. I mean, obviously the settings is in a desert, so people reach that point sometimes in life. They reach a place where what they believed in doesn't make sense anymore.
And then they find themselves here.
I guess so. Obviously he has, yeah.
Alright, here we go.
There's way too many different religions with vivid descriptions, begging all fucking men and women to listen. I can't even beat my dick without getting convicted. These ain't wicked decisions. I got different intentions. I've been itching to get it. I've been given assistance, but the whole fucking system is twisted. Now I'm dealing with this backlash because Marcus isn't a Christian, and I've been told that my sinful life is an addiction. But I can't buy it. It's just too hard to stand beside it. I need an answer, humans can't provide it. I look at the earth, the sun, and I can tell a genius man designed it. It's truly mind-blowing, I can't deny it. Is heaven real? Is it fake? Is it really how I fantasize it? Where's the Holy Ghost at? How long does it take a man to find it? My mind's a non-stop tape playing, and I can't rewind it. You gave me the Bible and expect me not to analyze it?
Well, you know, one of the things he said that caught my attention was that religions are confusing. Thinking that,
saying that there's a lot of in-depth religions out there.
right, and which is true. I mean, there are a lot of, but a lot of the religions have a piece of the truth. But the question is it the whole truth? And that's where, you know, I would side the fact that Christianity has the whole truth, because there's never been, no other religion can actually have what they call their savior that actually dies and raises again like Christianity. There's no other religion.
So you say that's the difference between.
That's a lie. Hey, good morning. Hey, that's a lie. There are other. That's what gets me about preachers sometimes. There's no other religion that's ever had their mascot die and live again. Come on, bro. That goes all the way back to Egypt. So this is still working on the skin tones. I was working on the skin tones a little bit again yesterday. I gotta let that dry now. That's not the final layer of paint. Most of my paintings have 3 layers. Some of them go up to 4 or 5 layers of paint. Something like this, really detailed. That's about 5 layers of paint on that dress. For your piece, it'll probably take about 3 layers of paint. So the skin tone you see now, that's not going to be the last skin tones. I'll apply some more highlights and get that looking a little bit more realistic. The hands are coming out really good. The lighting is really good. I think the dress may be dry enough to work on and start adding some more detailing here and on the shoulders. But I think I'm gonna start blending some colors and see if I can make a pretty color for the background. I know you say you like lilac, blue and purple. I'm gonna try to incorporate those colors in the background, and I may actually do a poetry piece on it. I was going to talk to you and see what can we do with this piece. Like you say, the photograph, the original photograph, the background, it's a really good picture, but the background doesn't add or take away from the main focal point, which is you guys. And so I think we may just drop the background out and just add something else that's more aesthetically pleasing. Like I say, just one of your favorite colors. You can put some colors back there. I can write a poem on it and make it look really nice. It's coming along really well right now, though. I like it. And that's the thing too. Like, that's why I said even a smaller canvas. The smaller the canvases are, the longer it'll take, and actually a little bit harder it is, because I can only use like my really small brushes to get the finer, trying to get those fine details in there. So it's a little bit. Okay. That's what I'm thinking. Like, I don't know. I don't know if you have a favorite poem, or I write poetry. I could write something original. I don't know. We could write something original. But still, you know, turning the gears. Yeah, I know what I wanted, what the background to look like. I just want you to be happy with it as well. But it's coming along nice. I like it. I love doing these anniversary pieces. I do them quite a bit, and I just love seeing people in love. You know what I'm saying? I love to see people in love, and you can just look at the smile on your face, and it's like it's perfect. That's awesome. Thank you for giving me some artistic leadway. I said that black is still wet on his suit, so it's going to take a while for me to actually get back to doing the portion of his suit. I have to let that black dry really good. But like I said, your dress, I may be able to start detailing your dress later this afternoon or tomorrow. But in a few minutes here, like I said, I'm just going to start mixing some colors and seeing if I can get some pretty colors on that background. And I tone my canvas this color right here. I always do this to all my canvases. I kind of make them like this orangish brownish color so that the paints stand out. So it looks a little bit weird with you guys against this color because it's not really complementary. But once I start adding those purples and pinks on there, it'll make you guys stand out a lot more. Let's see. So this is I was listening to some preachers, their first reaction to hearing Hop Sin's song, The Ill Mind of Hop Sin number 7. I have all of Hop Sin's mixtapes and stuff. This Ill Mind number 7 was really good. He goes in on religion. He's having a conversation with God and why he left the church and he doesn't really consider himself a Christian anymore. The song was really deep. So these two white preachers are sitting down listening to this black guy rap about his feelings and beliefs on religion and God, and they're just giving their take on it. But once again, they keep pausing it and inserting their comments and their thoughts. But the older gentleman just said, oh, Christianity is the only religion where our Savior died and was resurrected. Wrong. It's false. It's false. Horus, Osiris, Osar, Set, all that ancient Egypt shit that was thousands of years before the Christ story. The Epic of Gilgamesh, some of the Nordic gods, motherfucking Krishna. What's the other guy's name who fucking died? There was somebody else in Greek mythology who died and came back. That shit is not Jesus is not the only person who has that story, and the other stories are older than Jesus. So sorry, preacher, you lost some cool points for making that statement.
Christianity has the whole truth, because there's never been no other religion.
He says
truth.
Christianity.
What caught my attention was that
Christianity has the whole truth. Are you sure? The Christian Bible has been edited several times.
Who wants to take a man to find it? My mind's a non-stop tape playing and I can't rewind it. You give me the Bible and expect me not to analyze it?
Well, you know, one of the things he said that caught my attention was that religions are confusing.
Saying that there's a lot of in-depth religions out there.
Right, and which is true. I mean, there are a lot of, but a lot of the religions have a piece of the truth. But the question is it the whole truth? And that's where, you know, I would side the fact that Christianity has the whole truth, because there's never been, no other religion can actually have what they call their savior that actually dies and raises again like Christianity. There's no other religions.
So you say that's the difference
That's a lot.
between what he's talking about with every other religion and Christianity.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you don't think he understands that?
I don't know. I'm really unclear. I mean, he's
A practicing Buddhist. Yo, have you ever listened to Alan Watts? I listen to Alan Watts all the time. Older gentleman. Most of his lectures are from years ago, back in the day. But he talks about all the Far East cultures, like Buddhism, and breaks down their spiritual belief system. And I don't consider myself to be a part of any kind of religious structure, but the principles and ideologies of Buddhism are more in line with what I would consider a proper way to be a spiritual being, you know. All man-made. That's all it. Everything is man-made, yo. Man created God in our image. It's the weirdest fucking thing, yo. How we have created this sky daddy who sits on the throne, you know, and manipulates every facet of our life. It's impossible. It's just, I just don't see it that way. I just think that the human race doesn't need to worship anything. All we need to do is understand that there is only one I. When I say I'm going to the store, I want to do this, I feel a certain way. And when you say, I'm upset, I'm hungry, I feel this way, that's the same. Your I and my I, we are the same. There's only one I. In the same way that you feel that I am I, myself, everyone feels that way. And once everyone realizes that there's only one supreme consciousness that is I, and it's all of us, and we are all a part of the supreme I, the supreme consciousness, the infinite consciousness, and then there's no reason to worship any fucking thing. We are all a part of this energy source. We're just a vessel. The way I forgot who broke it down like this, but God is motherfucking Alan Watts has a really good analogy too. But I heard one person say that God, just say that God is the oceans or the waters of the world. All the connecting waters is God. You know what I'm saying? The ocean is the supreme consciousness and energy of God. And it's that body of water. Okay? Now imagine if someone comes along with just a little eyedropper and dips the eyedropper into the ocean and pulls up one drop of water, just one drop of water out this vast ocean of water, right? Which is God. So now there's one little piece of God, but it's inside of a vessel. It's now, this one drop of water is now contained in the eyedropper. And it's separated from the entire body of water. Now, by it becoming separated, it's not aware, it's not fully aware that it is the exact same thing as the ocean. Because it's contained in a vessel and it is separated, so it doesn't have that physical connection. But if you take that drop of water and squeeze it back into the fucking ocean, it goes back and you can't tell the difference. And that's what we are. We are that piece of God. We are all a part of the infinite consciousness, except we're in a vessel and we're experiencing what is known as life. And life experiences enhance and grow the supreme consciousness. And so everything we experience, when the vessel can no longer contain our consciousness, we go back to the supreme consciousness and enrich it with what we have experienced as a life, as a living being. Shaman, what up, what up? Even the earth isn't a thing to worship. You don't have to worship Gaia or Mother Nature. You know what I'm saying? Because it's worshiping yourself. Once again, everything is fucking connected, bro. You are the earth. You know what I'm saying? You are the earth. And especially if you want to be religious with it, the Bible say God made you from dirt. God molded you from dirt and blew life into you. You are the earth. Why are you going to worship the earth? You might as well just worship yourself. Worship yourself. The same fucking energy. The same matter. Whatever that is. Whatever science says matter is, and where did it come from? You know, where did matter? We're all the same shit. We're star stuff. We're all the same shit that stars, stardust, cosmic radiation, carbon, all this shit we try to quantify and scientifically weigh and measure and label shit. Neutrons, protons, electrons, ions, all this shit it don't matter. We're all the same, yo. Yeah, that Alan Watts, yo, like I say, man, Alan Watts is the fucking truth. He breaks down shit so fucking simple, and it's really pleasing to hear a white man talk like that, because he really criticizes Western culture, Western religions, you know what I'm saying? And he goes to the Far East and look at the Asians and look how the monks and the Buddhists do that shit, yo, and they do it different. And they look at life different. They look at life energy different. They look at the world different. They look at relationships and connections differently. They look at death different. You know what I'm saying? And for some reason, well, not for some reason, colonialism has fucking fucked everything up. You know what I'm saying? Everywhere the white man has settled and colonized, he pushes this fucking Christianity shit. And even this dude in the video I'm watching says, "Oh, Christianity is the best." It's not, dude. It's not. It's really not. It's a complete farce. It's a male, masculine dominated religion that places the woman at the lowest fucking pedestal, almost not acknowledging her at all. And it's fucking corruptive to the core. And you don't even have real Bibles anymore. There is no Bibles. You only have a version of the Bible. I have my Bible. No, you don't. You don't have a Bible. You have a version. This is an original painting. Right now, I'm the only motherfucker who got this shit. Y'all can screenshot it all y'all want. Everybody can screenshot it, and you can have a copy, but you'll have a version of this. You will not have this. I can make 1 million prints and seen these shits all out around the world. You will not have this painting. You will not have a paint. You will have a version of it. They can be altered, manipulated, changed, censored, sanitized. And that's every religious book you have is a version of what was. Never the original. There are no original Bibles. You'll never know what. If you had an original Bible, you wouldn't even know that shit. First of all, you couldn't even read that motherfucker. Translated from Aramaic to Hebrew to fucking Latin to Greek to goddamn Old English, then English. Motherfucker don't even know why the Bible was, why the two halves of the Bible was put under one cover. Why was the Old Testament and the New Testament put under one cover? The Old Testament, the Talmud, that was a complete book. It was done. It was done. Why was it so important the first time we invented the printing press with movable print that was the first shit we printed up? The Bible. Just questions, man. But everybody fall for this shit, bro. Everybody fall for that shit.
like he brought it up, the fact that all religions are the same or are confusing, but he's obviously got elements of genuine Christianity. It seems to be all jumbled up in his head.
So like when he said, "Where are you?" and the Holy Ghost, like, I can't see you, any of that, because I think that's something a lot of people struggle with, is, well, I can't see him. Where is he? There's a ton of religions out there, so what makes this the one? You know, as soon as they get faced with Christianity, then they feel a conviction or a guilt, and it's like, why do I feel that if there's no evidence of this person? There's no evidence of a Holy Ghost. There's no evidence of God.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Bible says if you seek me, God says if you seek me, you'll find me. So you have to ask yourself, is that truth or not? I mean, sometimes we want God to seek us, but God said if you seek me, that's the difference. God says, you seek me, you'll find me. And there's been huge amounts of people over history that have done that. They've sought out to disprove God, and they've found him. They found a relationship with him, not another religion. They found a relationship with a living, loving God, and it changed their life. But they had to seek.
It seems to me, and I've only seen this video a couple times, but it seems to me like he is seeking. Would you say
he may be. I mean, this is my first time seeing it, so I'm just giving first impressions.
All right, here we go. Let's keep going.
I'm frustrated and you provoked it. I'm not reading that motherfucking book because a human wrote it. I have a fucking brain, you should know it. You gave it to me to think, to avoid every useless moment. It was a mission that I had to abort, cause humans be lying with such an inaccurate source. It's gonna be hard to put me back on the course. Next Jehovah's Witness to come on my board, that's where I'm slamming the door.
Yeah, I mean, he's believing that the Bible's written by men.
I love when Jehovah's Witnesses come to my house. Come on there. Come on. You come sit down. Tell me about this Jehovah. Wait, whoa. First of all, who knows the date of the Nicene Council? If a Jehovah's Witness can't tell me the date of the Nicene Council, okay, y'all shit is done. Because y'all is going strictly on one book and not by historical evidence and dates. I just tell them, yo, come on, let me educate you. Do you know who Serapis Christos is? When Alexander the Great invaded Egypt and placed his people as the pharaohs, and the Ptolemies and 21 Lagi tried to get into the mystery schools and they wouldn't initiate him. So he took some of their older gods, Apis, the bull god, and a different god, and he created Serapis, and said that Serapis was anointed. So Christ means the anointed one. So the cult was called the cult of Serapis Christos, Serapis Christos, which eventually morphed into the cult of Jesus Christ. You know who Caesar Borgia is? Oh, no. See, and these are the conversations I'll be having with the Jehovah's Witnesses. Go, bring your ass in here. Come on. Don't worry about that smell. I'll air it out in a minute. Spray some air freshener. You'll be all right. You ain't going to get no contact. Jesus don't mind. I mean, Jehovah. Damn. With Malcolm? Oh, yeah.
Inspired by God. Obviously, it was written by men, but it was inspired by God. And there's no other book. I mean, the Bible's written over like 1,400 years, and it all talks about the same person, the same character. There's not a deviation in the fact of who God is and how he handles people and how he wants the best for us. It's the same all the way through 14.
It is not. It is not the fucking same. The Bible, the God of the Old Testament, because he needed to make a new covenant, and the God of the New Testament are completely different beings. Completely different. The God of the Old Testament, and that's why a lot of priests don't even like going to the Old Testament. Because the God in the Old Testament, this motherfucker was evil. This motherfucker will smite you for no reason. I'm talking about this, and then the old guy, he walk around. This motherfucker walk around and come talk and fuck with people. The God in the New Testament, he ain't do that shit, man. He sent his angels and everybody else. The old guy, this motherfucker was on earth walking around. He came to Moses. And Moses like, who the fuck is you? He's like, I'm God. Moses like, God? Who's God? He's like, come on, man, me, God. You know, I'm the God of your forefathers, Isaac, Abraham, Jacob. I'm that. Oh, you that God? Oh, Moses like, oh, I heard about you. That was like a long time ago, though. Where the fuck you been at? Wait, that was like generations ago. He's like, God was like, nigga, I was doing godly shit, you know, smiting motherfuckers, making sure the devil stay in his place. But I'm back. And Moses like, yo, prove to me you God. How I'm supposed to know you God? Nigga, like, that shit is some crazy shit. I mean, I heard people talk about you, but how I know it's you? God was like, look, stick your hand inside your robe. It's like, what? It's like, God, just like, do it, man. Just stick your hand inside your robe. Moses like, all right, what? All right. He said, pull your hand out. He's like, oh, it's leprosy. Damn. I just did that. I just wasted that water. Fuck. Ooh, it's brown. Moses like, oh shit, I got leprosy. Oh shit, what the fuck? He's like, now put your hand back in there and pull it back out. He's like, oh, it's gone. He's like, oh, you is God. Yo, that shit crazy, son. You really is God. You gave me leprosy, and then you made that shit go away, son. That was funny. That was a funny story in the Bible. You know? That was a funny story. Even the blessings of God. Motherfucking, who the two brothers was? Esau and the other dude was fighting over the blessings of God. He's like, yo, I want the blessing, man. God. And then one brother was hairy as fuck. And so the other brother told the one to go do something else. And this motherfucker said he put on a sheepskin, and so he can go get the blessing of God from his daddy. And his daddy's like, is that you? He was like, yeah, that's me. He was like, let me see it. Dad couldn't see and shit. He rubbed his arm. He was like, oh, that is you. I could tell by how hairy you is. I'm like, damn, this nigga was hairy like a sheep. That a sheep wolf fooled your daddy to think that was you? That motherfucker was hairy as hell. And they lying about who the brother is so they can get the blessing. Why God can't bless everybody? Why God only denotes this one fucking family, in this one lineage, to pass down the blessings through this one family? It's weird as fuck, man. I say, man, they too many questions in the Old Testament. That's why I love Genesis. Just Genesis alone, that shit is fucking weird as shit, yo. Just reading Genesis is weird as fuck. Cain killed his brother, and so they sent his ass away to the land of the refugees. I thought it was just Adam and Eve had some kids. One kid killed the other kid, but he gonna go to the land of the refugees? Where this land at? Who all these refugees? Where the fuck they come from? Huh? Who are all these other people with? Nobody knows. Oh, time was different back then. Because people could live for 1,000 years. 1,000 years was like a day to God. That's why it took him 7 days, but it really wasn't 7 days. It was 7,000 years to build the earth. See, it's complicated. No man shall fully understand the words of God. And that's what they give you when you ask too many hard questions. No man should understand. Okay. All right. Okay, Mr. Holy People. That's what you want to say.
Years, I think 40 different writers. That's pretty amazing. You can't find any other book with spanning that amount of time with that many different human writers and not realize this is inspired by Almighty God.
So that's I guess that's what would be your disagreement with him, or just that's something that he's not seeing, and like many people I would assume that are watching.
Man, I do this shit every day, bro. Art and education, baby. You get some art, you get some education. Try to balance that shit out. A couple of jokes. We get some trolls in here. We troll the trolls, run their ass up out of town. We just be having a good time. I'm gonna let this play for a minute. This place smells like bone water now. I can't believe it was time though. Like it was. I guess I needed to do that because this shit is, bro. This shit ain't even water no more. It's kind of like mud almost. Oh, don't drop that. Alright guys, I'm going to clean this out real quick, and I'm going to come back and start mixing some colors.
Also, agree with, because I've met a lot of people like that. Well, it's like the book was written by humans, and so you can't trust humans; they're imperfect. But you're saying it was humans that were inspired.
Correct.
By God.
That's the difference.
All right, here we go.
A lot of folks believe it though, but I'm not surprised. Humans are fucking dumb, still thinking that Pac's alive. I ain't trying to take your legacy and torture down. I'm just saying, I ain't heard shit from the horse's mouth. Just sheep always telling stories of older guys who were notarized like you when you finally vocalized. Now I'm supposed to bow my head and close my eyes and somehow let the Holy Ghost arise? Sounds like a fucking poster guy. Show yourself and the boom is done. Every rumor's gone. I no longer doubt this shit. You're the one. I'll admit that my simple ways were stupid fun, and all my old habits can hop on top of a roof to plunge. I donate to a charity that could use the funds. Fuck the club instead of bitches. I'd hang with a group of nuns, and everyone I ran into would know what I came to do. I wouldn't take a step unless it was in the name of you.
Any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously wanting God to show himself to him. So my question is he really seeking, or is he looking for a sign?
You're saying if he finds proof, which is what he's seeking for, proof that God exists, then he was like, then I'll follow you.
Yeah, that's kind of what I gather he's saying.
Yeah.
But the greatest proof of that God is real is a changed life. And somebody that was in a bondage, and they met God and broke out of that bondage. They got free of it. They're no longer participating in that vice that once held them in life, because they met Jesus. They met God. That set them free. And so I don't hear him having or maybe experiencing, maybe even being connected with anybody that's had that kind of profound life change because they met Jesus.
So you just think everything that he's heard his entire life and what he's been searching for has been just like a doctrine, the Ten Commandment religion and this and that.
Yeah, it feels that way, but also I hear this, his soul is crying out for something authentic. I mean, I hear in what he's saying, the emotion, his soul, he's like, this is what I've experienced, but I wish there was something more. I wish there was something authentic. So in one sense, he's like, I've only experienced this. It doesn't make sense. It's not authentic. It's not real. It's fake. But I hear him at the same time crying out for something that is genuine and real and authentic and alive and life-changing.
I think that's with a lot of people watching this. That's why it has 50+ million views. Is because people register with that.
Yeah.
I hate the fact that I have to believe you haven't been chatting with me like you did Adam and Eve. And I ain't seen no fucking talking snake unravel from trees with an apple to eat. That shit never happens to me. I don't know if you do it don't exist. It's driving me crazy. Send your condolences. This is me reaching to you, so don't forget that hell is truly a pit of fire and I get thrown in it. I'ma probably regret the fact that I ever wrote this shit. My gut feeling says it's all fake. I hate to say it, but fuck it, shit, I'd have lost faith. This isn't a small phase, my perspective's all changed. My thoughts just keep picking shit apart all day. And in my mind, I make perfect sense. If you aren't real, then all my prayers aren't worth a cent. That would mean that I can just make up what my purpose is, and I can sit in church and just make fucking services. Man, what if Jesus was a facade? Then that would mean the government's God. I feel like they've been brainwashing us with a lot, so much that we don't even notice that we're stuck in the box. Man, everything is what if. Why is it always what if? Planet Earth, what if? The universe, what if? My sacrifice, what if? My afterlife, what if? Every fucking thing that deals with you is fucking suspect!
Wow. Yeah. I mean, we are thrown a lot. Science and the news and education and everything is thrown. We have the truth. Believe us. There's no question in this day more than ever. I mean, you got the world in your cell phone with that. We're thrown things and everybody says, I got it right. But everybody probably just has a piece.
So I think that's his point that he's making, is it's like everything is suspect. Okay, yeah, there's truth here. Yeah, there's truth here. Yeah, there's truth here. But like, what says that this is the truth?
Well, I mean, the Bible says that you have to believe, and so you can't figure it out. Faith is something you choose to believe. It's not something that you figure out and then you say, well, this is the best of all the options. I mean, you could go through that, and there's people that have done that, but sooner or later it comes down to faith. Believe in something bigger than yourself. Believe in something that doesn't quite make sense. And then what happens when you believe what God says is true, then what happens? Your thoughts change, and it's not brainwash. It makes sense.
But would you say, this is something that just came to my mind, and would you agree, is that people think once they encounter God or once they have that relationship with God, then once they have proof, then they will adopt faith. But that's not what faith is. Faith is not, okay, I have a proof, and so now I'm adopting faith. Faith is having absolutely nothing but choosing to believe.
Correct. Now you can have examples like other people you know that have changed their life because they've met God, they've accepted Jesus. But it's something that is personal. You have to do it for yourself.
Here's where I think he's at, is that he's chosen to believe.
Chosen to believe what?
Like he tried that route. Like, okay, I don't see that.
Books of the Old Testament.
There could be something in this, and so I'm
What's
gonna
this?
choose that. I'm gonna choose
The books
and
called
still, he goes,
Apocrypha.
some months, years, and they're just like,
Then the books of the New Testament. How come all Bibles don't have this right here?
Read the Bible.
The books called
but
Apocrypha.
Life is fun, and this new life is filled with misery and hard times. What would you say to that, to people who have had faith or chosen to believe, and then they leave this entire life behind that, you know, it was destructive, but at the same time, they were at least they were having fun. So some people might want to like go back to that, and that seems to be the point he's at, where he's just like, I have chosen that, but
Yeah, I get your point. The question is, were you really having fun? Did you have authentic friends? Who was with you when
It's the
when
oldest
things
book I
went
got, yo.
bad?
That shit from
Obviously, he's
1800.
suggesting that things are worse now. Maybe he
Yeah,
did.
this shit is from the fucking 1800s. This is the only copy of a Bible that I've ever seen that extra section of books in that shit, yo. Books called Apocrypha. I started reading some of them, just like some more Bible shit, like some weird ass stories and shit. But once again, everybody just got a version of this shit, cause the version you got ain't like the version I got. They don't make these kind of versions no more. It's just a version. It's not that big of a deal. Bible, biblio. It just means book. That's all that shit means. Bible means book. It ain't nothing but a fucking book. Oh, it's inspired by God. The Bible is inspired by God. Well, inspired by which God? Because there's fucking lots of gods. There's over 2,500 deities, man, that people worship as gods. And there's a lot of them that were creator gods who created the world in a very similar fashion that the Abrahamic scriptures talk about. So, yo, doing watching YouTube videos and all that, Google and Wikipedia shit, man, that shit cool, man. Pick up some books, man. Read some shit, man. Pick up a book. That shit ain't gonna hurt you. You wanna know about the Bible? Read the fucking Bible. You do know how to read, right? And you don't really gotta go to church and let somebody else read it to you. It's like a bedtime story. Want me to come read you a bedtime story? In the beginning, there was darkness. Ah, damn. Read that shit for your damn self. And then you'll be like, whoa. The preacher never read that passage before. Yeah, I bet he didn't read that passage. Everything in the Bible ain't meant to be read out loud. That shit, it might make you think. That shit might make you think. Alright, I'm gonna put this Alan Watts on real quick. This is one of my favorite little Alan Watts. Let me see. It's so far back in my fucking YouTube history, but it should be pretty close on my. I posted it on Facebook, so let me see if I can find it on Facebook. Nope, not there. Like this one, right? I posted his little picture. There's a cure for cancer. His name is Jesus. There's a cure for HIV/AIDS. His name is Jesus. There's a cure for lupus. His name is Jesus. There's a cure for diabetes. His name is Jesus. And then someone posted at the bottom, well, when is he going to publish his research? Motherfucker got the kills for all this shit, man. You need to step up and publish some of that shit. When is he gonna publish the research for this shit? Motherfucker got a cure for this and a cure for that. His name is Jesus. The Mandela effect. Spare me the Caucasian literature. Bro, you gotta...
The old story.
This is what I tell people, man. You gotta read both sides, bro. Because if you don't know what your enemy is thinking, how you gonna defeat your enemy? See, you gotta have this part right here. African-centered consciousness versus the New World Order, Garveyism and the age of globalism. This is my man's, Dr. Amos Wilson. Oh boy, he got all the answers. This is the only man I ever agree with 100% of the time, 100% of the time. The only person in life I've never, ever, nobody, not even my grandmama, because she was a Christian. I've never agreed with anybody 100%, but Dr. Amos Wilson, I just cannot disagree with this man. I cannot disagree with this man. Black on black violence, the psychodynamics of black self-annihilation in service of white domination. Dr. Amos Wilson, yo, once again, he strikes. The author of Developmental Psychology of the Black Child. This dude is too fucking smart. He passed away in like the late 90s. If you never heard of Dr. Amos Wilson, he has dozens and dozens of hours of lectures on YouTube. Listen to some of his lectures. You won't disagree with him. What else I got? The falsification of African consciousness. Eurocentric history, psychiatry, and the politics of white supremacy. Ooh, also Dr. Amos Nelson Wilson. You think I like Amos Wilson? A little bit. Maybe. When I listed, see, this picture has a list of some of my favorite teachers on there, because these people are sitting in a bookstore and they're reading books. Some Robert Greene, he wrote 48 Laws of Power. Nelson Mandela, he was the president of South Africa. The ISIS paper is written by Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. She actually debated Dr. Robert Shockley. And then here is a list of teachers, and whose name is at the top of the list? Dr. Amos Wilson. Dr. Amos Wilson. I like this dude, man. Oh, I definitely used to like Alex Jones. Met Alex Jones in person in 2012. We were at Chantilly, Virginia, and we were protesting the Bilderberg Group. Met him in person, had a little conversation with him. He actually signed one of my t-shirts. I got us on camera and everything. But then I heard him in a debate with Immortal Technique. He was very, very intimidated by Immortal Technique's knowledge and understanding. And Alex Jones seemed to be kind of flaking out a little bit, so I kind of strayed away from him. Then I heard him make one more kind of semi-racist remark after that, and then he started supporting Trump, and it's like, I'm done with that. I'm done with that. But Alex gave me a lot of information early on, yo. But see, after you, once again, you just can't read one person, man. You know what I'm saying? You know, some Huey P. Newton, that revolutionary suicide. Very, very important phrase. Do you even understand what revolutionary suicide means? You got to read the book. He'll break it down for you. You know what I'm saying? Some more back to that Bible shit, man. Enoch, the Ethiopian, the last prophet. You know what I'm saying? Oh, the narrative and life of Frederick Douglass. I know who Frederick Douglass is. Don't talk about that Egyptian magic, Sir Wallace Budge. This motherfucker was a lying ass, crook, thieving ass motherfucker. But you gotta read what they say, because they be hiding shit from us. You know what I'm saying? Because this book ain't meant for us to read. This book meant for they can read it. I want to know what the fuck they be talking about. You know what I'm saying? Spreading them rumors and lies and shit. Not some more, not the spirit of the panther. Not the, the spirit of the panther. my main man. You know, so. Oh, one of the greatest books ever written, The Destruction of Black Civilization. Greatest issues of a race from 4500 BC to 2000 AD. Alex Jones ain't gonna tell you about this on the Alex Jones podcast, though. You know what I'm saying? You can't even learn about shit like this on certain places, man. The story of Scottish Rite Freemasonry. But I got the pamphlet. Do you have the pamphlet? I got the pamphlet. Ooh. Some more history books. When Rocks Cry Out by Horace Butler. Man, this shit will blow your fucking mind. This man say, they gonna sound crazy when I say it. It gonna sound crazy when I say this shit. But read his research. This man say that Egypt is in South America, not Africa. That shit sound crazy, don't it? Read this book right here, man. When Rocks Cry Out. Oh, the Olmecs? You want to know about the Incas, the Aztecs, the Mayas? Man, fuck all that shit. What about them Olmecs, them black motherfuckers right there? You know why? Because they came before Columbus. The African presence in ancient America. This is something else that Alex Jones probably won't put you up on his show. You know? So, yeah, you probably listen to Alex Jones too. I listen to everything, bro. You know why? Because you ain't going to get all the knowledge from one person. But you can learn a lot from a dummy. So, don't ever limit yourself to sources of information, or you gonna get trapped off in a conversation where you have no rebuttals because you only know one side of the spectrum. Almost on any topic, I can be pro or con and give good reasons why. Can you do that? No, because you gotta be on both sides of the line. You know, sometimes you gotta sleep with the enemy.
Of the astronaut who went far out into space and was asked on his return whether he had been to heaven and seen God. And he said yes. And so they said to him, well, what about God? And he said, she is black. And although this is a very well-known and well-worn story, it is very profound. Because, I tell you, I knew a monk who started out in life as pretty much of an agnostic or an atheist. And then he began to read Henri Bergson, the French philosopher who proclaimed the vital force, the élan vital, and so on. And the more he read into this kind of philosophy, the more he saw that these people were really talking about God. And I've read a great deal of theological reasoning about the existence of God, and they all start out on this line. If you are intelligent and reasonable, you cannot be the product of a mechanical and meaningless universe. Figs do not grow on thistles. Grapes do not grow on thorns. And therefore, you, as an expression of the universe, as an aperture through which the universe is observing itself, cannot be a mere fluke. Because if this world peoples, as a tree brings forth fruit, then the universe itself, the energy which underlies it, what it's all about, the ground of being, as Paul Tillich called it, must be intelligent. Now, when you come to that conclusion, you must be very careful, because you may make an unwarranted jump. Namely, the jump to the conclusion that that intelligence, that marvelous designing power which produces all this, is the biblical God. Be careful. Because that God, contrary to his own commandments, is fashioned in the graven image of a paternal, authoritarian, beneficent tyrant of the ancient Near East. And it's very easy to fall into that trap, because it's all prepared, institutionalized in the Roman Catholic Church, in the synagogue, in the Protestant churches, all there ready for you to accept. And by the pressure of social consensus and so on, it is very natural to assume that when somebody uses the word God, it is that father figure which is intended. Because even Jesus used the analogy, the Father, for his experience of God. He had to.
The Father, you know what I'm saying? Because you have no control over yourself, because you irresponsible. So you look at God, your Father, your Heavenly Father. And once you, get baptized and all that shit, now you are born again. You are born again, and you're a child of Christ. And you'll always be a child of Christ. Fuck that, I'm a grown-ass fucking man. I'm an adult. I know who my father is. I don't need this fictional father figure to tell me I'm a child.
There was no other one available to him in his culture. But nowadays, we are in rebellion against the image of the authoritarian father. Especially this should happen in the United States, where it happens that we are a republic and not a monarchy. And if you as a loyal citizen of this country think that a republic is the best form of government, you can hardly believe that the universe is a monarchy. But to reject the paternalistic image of God as an idol is not necessarily to be an atheist. Although I have advocated something called atheism in the name of God. That is to say, an experience, a contact, a relationship with God, that is to say, with the ground of your being, that does not have to be embodied or expressed in any specific image. Now, theologians on the whole don't like that idea, because I find in my discourse with them that they want to be a little bit hard-nosed about the nature of God. They want to say that God has indeed a very specific nature. Ethical monotheism means that the governing power of this universe has some extremely definite opinions and rules to which our minds and acts must be conformed. And if you don't watch out, you'll go against the fundamental grain of the universe and be punished in some way. Old-fashionedly, you will burn in the fires of hell forever. More modern-fashionedly, you will fail to be an authentic person. It's another way of talking about it. But there is this feeling, you see, that there is authority behind the world, and it's not you. It's something else. Like we say, that's something else that's far out. And therefore, this Jewish, Christian, and indeed Muslim approach makes a lot of people feel rather strange, estranged from the root and ground of being. There are a lot of people who never grow up and are always in awe of...
Yeah, I can trace my forefathers back to a sales receipt in South Carolina. That's about as far as it can go. Do you know who your forefathers are? No? Yeah? It's good for you. It's good for you. Oh yeah, this is a commission piece for a buddy of mine. Damn! For you to envy haters, this motherfucker got some proper ass grammar this morning. Whoa, somebody get this man a sticker. May I ask whom is speaking? This motherfucker went Shakespeare on me. The person we are currently listening to goes by the name of Alan Watts. Gold Star, Boozy, somebody who on the PlayStation, pop up some bubbles for this man, yo. Get this man some bubbles, or happy faces or something. May I ask whom is speaking? See? A motherfucker like me like, can you tell me who talking? Can you tell me who that person talking? May I ask whom is speaking? The person of whom you inquire. I love it. I love it. I don't normally get to enunciate this often. It's very pleasing to the palate, actually. Can I ask who talking? Not. Can I ask who talking? You gonna tell me who that is or not?
Grandfather. Now I'm a grandfather.
See, y'all think just a bunch of motherfucking dummies come in. I get smart people in my stream too. I get smart people coming here. Don't y'all be criticizing my stream. We intelligent. We're highly intellectual people around here. And we listen to Alan Watts for breakfast.
5 grandchildren. And so I'm no longer in awe of grandfathers. I know I'm just as stupid as my own grandfathers were. And therefore I'm not about to bow down to an image of God with a long white beard. Now, naturally, of course, we intelligent people don't believe in that kind of a God, not really. I mean, we think that God is spirit, that God is very undefinable and infinite and all that kind of thing. But nevertheless, the images of God are have a far more powerful effect upon our emotions than our ideas. And when people read the Bible and sing hymns, Ancient of Days, who sittest throned in glory, immortal, invisible, God only wise, in light inaccessible hid from our eyes. They still got that fellow up there with a beard on. It's way in the back of the emotions. And so we should think, first of all, in contrary imagery. And the contrary imagery is, she's black. Imagine instead of God the Father, God the Mother. And imagine that this is not a luminous being, blazing with light, but an unfathomable darkness, such as is portrayed in Hindu mythology by Kali, K-A-L-I, the Great Mother, who is represented in the most terrible imagery. Kali has a tongue hanging out long, drooling with blood. She has fanged teeth. She has a scimitar in one hand and a severed head in the other. And she is trampling on the body of her husband, who is Shiva. Shiva represents also, furthermore, the destructive aspect of the deity, wherein all things are dissolved so that they be reborn again. And here is this blood-sucking, terrible mother as the image of the supreme reality behind this universe. Imagine, it's the representative of the octopus, the spider, the awful awfuls, the creepy crawlies at the end of the line, which we're all terrified of. Now that's a very important image, because let us suppose, just for the sake of argument, that all of you sitting here right now are feeling fairly all right. I mean, you're not in a hospital. You don't have the screaming memes. You have a sense you probably had dinner and are feeling pretty good. But you know that you feel that you're fairly good because in the background of your minds, very far off in the background of your minds, you've got the sensation of something absolutely ghastly that simply mustn't happen. And so against that, which is not happening, and which doesn't necessarily have to happen, but by comparison with that, you feel pretty all right. And that absolutely ghastly thing that mustn't happen at all is Kali. And therefore, at once, we begin to wonder whether the presence of this Kali is not in a way very beneficent. I mean, how would you know that things were good unless there was something that wasn't good at all? Now I'm not putting this forward as a final position. I'm only putting it forward as a variation, as a way of beginning to look at a problem and getting our minds out of their normal ruts. She's black. Well, she, first of all, feminine, represents what is called philosophically the negative principle. Now, of course, people who are women in our culture today and believe in women's lib don't like to be associated with the negative, because the negative has acquired very bad connotations. We say accentuate the positive, but that's a purely male chauvinistic attitude. How would you know that you were outstanding unless by contrast there was something instanding? You cannot appreciate the convex without the concave. You cannot appreciate the firm without the yielding. And therefore the so-called negativity of the feminine principle is obviously life-giving and very important. But we live in a culture which doesn't notice it. You see a painting, a drawing of a bird, and you don't notice the white paper underneath it. You see a printed book, and you think that what is important is the printing, and the page doesn't matter. And yet, if you reconsider the whole thing, how could there be visible printing without the page underlying it? What is called substance, that which stands underneath, underneath, stands. To be substantial is to be underlying, to be the support, to be the foundation of the world. And of course, this is the great function of the feminine, to be the substance.
Where is this in your? Where is this shit? Where is any of this shit in your Christian teachings? Oh, I forgot. In Christianity, you got the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Where the woman? Where the feminine energy at? Where's the balance? Where's the yin and yang? Up and down, soft, hard, left, right. Oh, we got the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. That shit sound like a sausage fest to me. I ain't want no parts of that. And then the Holy Spirit rape a bitch and get her pregnant with a... Never mind. Let me just go back to Alan Watts. He makes more sense.
Space, which is of course black at night. But were it not for black and empty space, there would be no possibility whatsoever of seeing the stars. Stars shine out of space, and astronomers, very high-powered astronomers, are beginning to realize that stars are a function of space. Now that's difficult for our common sense, because we think that space is simply inert nothingness. But we don't realize that space is completely basic to everything. It's like your consciousness. Nobody can imagine what consciousness is. it's the most elusive, whatever it is, that there is at all. Because it's the background of everything else that we know. Therefore, we don't really pay much attention to it. We pay attention to the things within the field of consciousness, to the outlines, to the objects, to the so-called things that are in the field of vision, the sounds that are in the field of hearing, and so forth. But what it is that ever it is that embraces all that, we don't pay much attention to it. We can't even think about it. It's like trying to look at your head. You know, you try to look at your head, and what do you find? You don't even find the black blob in the middle of things. You just don't find anything. And yet that is that out of which you see, just as space is that out of which the stars shine. So there's something very queer about all this. That which you can't put your finger on, that which always escapes you, that which is completely elusive, the blank, seems to be absolutely necessary for there to be anything whatsoever. Now let's take this further. Kali also is the principle of death, because she carries a scimitar in one hand and a severed head in the other. Death. This is tremendously important to think about. We put it off. Death is swept under the carpet in our culture. In the hospital, they try to keep you alive as long as possible in utter desperation. They won't tell you that you're going to die. When their relatives have to be informed that it's a hopeless case, they say, don't tell this to the patient. And all the relatives come around with hollow grins and say, well, you'll be all right in about a month, and then we'll go and have a holiday somewhere and sit by the sea and listen to the birds and whatnot. And the dying person knows that this is mockery. Well, of course, we've made death howl with all kinds of ghouls. We've invented dreadful afterlives. I mean, the Christian version of heaven is as abominable as the Christian version of hell. I mean, nobody wants to be in church forever. Children are absolutely horrified when they hear these hymns which say, prostrate before thy throne to lie and gaze on thee. They can't imagine what this imagery means. I mean, in a very subtle theological way, I could wangle that statement around to make it extremely profound. I mean, to be prostrate at once and to gaze on the other hand, see, is a coincidentia oppositorum, a coincidence of opposites, which is very, very deep. But to a child, it is a crick in the neck. And that's the sort of imagery we're brought up with. So the idea of what might happen after death, well, you're going to be faced with your judge. The one who knows all about you. This is Big Papa, who knows you were a naughty boy and a very naughty girl, especially girl, from the beginning of things. He's going to look right through to the core of your inauthentic existence. And what kind of heebie-jeebies may come up. Or you may believe in...
When you say color theory, are you talking about, like, the theories of color, like in marketing and advertisement? Why do some fast food restaurants use yellows and reds in their signs and advertisements, and why do some fast food restaurants use blues and greens in their advertisements? That's color theory. Why everything is made to have an emotional response. Every product you buy is packaged a certain way and is colored. The packaging has certain colors on it to make you think a certain way about the product inside. So that, if that's a way to think about color theory, I've never read any things about that. But if you're talking about like human colors, like racism color theory, I've already this painting all the time, but this is one of the best books on it. It's called Isis Papers. Keys to the Colors. The Keys to the Colors is right there in the title. So that's a really, really good book on color theory.
And you think that your next life will be the rewards and the punishments for what you've done in this life. And you know you got away with murder in this life. And the most awful things are going to happen next time around. So you look upon death as a catastrophe. Then there are other people who say, well, when you're dead, you're dead. Just nothing's going to happen at all. So what you ought to worry about? Well, we don't quite like that idea. Because it spooks us. You know, what's it be like to die? To go to sleep and never wake up? Well, a lot of things it's not going to be like. It's not going to be like being buried alive. It's not going to be like being in the darkness forever. I tell you what, it's going to be like as if you never had existed at all. Not only you, but everything else as well. That just there was never anything, and there's no one to regret it. And there's no problem. Well, think about that for a while. It's kind of a weird feeling you get when you really think about that. You really imagine it. Just to stop altogether. And you can't even call it stop, because you can't have stop without start. And there wasn't any start. There's just no thing. Well, then when you come to think of it, that's the way it was before you were born. I mean, if you go back in memory, as far as you can go, you get to the same place. As you go forward in your anticipation of the future as to what it's going to be like to be dead. Then you get these funny ideas that this blankness is the necessary counterpart of what we call being. Now, we all think we're alive, don't we? I mean, we're really here? That there is something called existence? You know, the existentialists, Dasein, thrownness, you know, here we are. But how could you be experiencing that as a reality unless you had once been dead? What gives us any ghost of a notion that we're here, except by contrast with the fact that we once weren't? And later on won't we? But this thing is a cycle, like positive and negative poles in electricity. So this then is the value of the symbolism of she is black. She, the womb principle, the receptive, the instanding, the void, and the dark. And so that is to come into the presence of the God who has no image. Behind the Father image, behind the Mother image, behind the image of light inaccessible, and behind the image of profound and abysmal darkness, there's something else which we can't conceive at all. Dionysius the Areopagite called it the luminous darkness. Nagarjuna called it Shunyata, the void. Shankara called it Brahman, that which can only, of which nothing at all can be said. Neti neti. Beyond all conception whatsoever. And you see, that is not atheism in the formal sense of the word. This is a profoundly religious attitude, because what it corresponds to practically is an attitude to life of total trust, of letting go, when we form images of God, they are all really exhibitions of our lack of faith. Something to hold on to, something to grasp. How firm a foundation, what lies underneath us, the rock of ages, or whatever, ein feste Burg. But when we don't grasp, we have the attitude of faith. If you let go of all the idols, you will of course discover that what this unknown is, which is the foundation of the universe, is precisely you. It's not the you think you are. No, it's not your opinion of yourself. It's not your idea or image of yourself. It's not the chronic sense of muscular strain, which we usually call I. You can't grasp it. Of course not. Why would you need to? Supposing you could, what would you do with it? And who would do what with it? You can never get at it. So there is that profound central mystery. And the attitude of faith is to stop chasing it. Stop grabbing it. Because if that happens, the most amazing things follow. But all these ideas of the spiritual, the godly, as this attitude of must. And we have been laid down the laws which we are bound to follow. All this jazz is not the only way of being religious and of relating to the ineffable mystery that underlies ourselves and the world.
Did you go to heaven? Did you see God? And he said, yes. And they said to him, well, tell us of God. Well, she's black. No, see,
Come again?
see, no, we don't do the commercials. Nope. No commercials. I met God. She's black. Not my first clone. Such a privilege.
What's the difference? What's the difference?
Well, what is it that you feel when you feel I? I'll tell you. What do you do when somebody says, pay attention? What is the difference between looking at something and taking a hard look at it? Or between hearing something and listening intently? What's the difference? What's the difference between waiting while something goes on and enduring it? Why? The difference is this, that when you pay attention, instead of just looking, you screw up your face, you frown and stare. That is a muscular activity around here. When you will, you grit your teeth or clench your fists. When you endure or control yourself, you pull yourself together physically, and therefore you get uptight. You hold your breath. You do all kinds of muscular things to control the functioning of your nervous system. And none of them have the slightest effect on the proper operation of the nervous system. If you stare at things, you will rather fuzz the image than see them clearly. If you listen intently by concentrating on muscles round the ears, you will be so much attending to muscles here that you won't hear things properly, and you may get singing in the ears. If you tighten up with your body to pull yourself together, all you do is constrict yourself. I remember in school, I sat next to a boy who had great difficulty in learning to read. And what they always say to children is, try. If you can't do something, you must try. So the boy tries. And what has he done? When he's trying to get out words, he grunts and groans as if he were lifting weights. And the teacher's impressed. The boy is really trying. Gives him B for effort. Oh, he's doing it. Has nothing to do with it. Now, we all make this muscular straining with the thought that it's achieving psychological results. The sort of psychological results it's intended to achieve. Now, all this amounts to is it's like you're taking off in a jet plane. And you've got a mile down the runway and the thing isn't up in the air yet, and you get nervous. So you start pulling at your seatbelt. That's what it is. Now, that is a chronic feeling. We have it in us all the time, and it corresponds to the word I. That's what you feel when you say I. You feel that chronic tension. Because when an organ is working properly, you don't feel it. If you see your eye, you've got cataract. If you hear your ears, you've got singing in your ears, getting in the way of hearing. When you are fully functioning, you are unaware of the organ. When you're thinking clearly, your brain isn't getting in your way. Actually, of course, you are seeing your eyes in the sense that everything you see out in front of you is a condition in the optic nerves at the back of the skull. That's where you're aware of all this. But you're not aware of the eye as the eye. I'm talking about the optical eye. So when we are aware of the ego eye, we are aware of this chronic tension inside ourselves. And that's not us. It's a futile tension. So when we get the illusion, the image of ourselves, married to a futile tension, you've got an illusion married to a futility. And then you wonder why I can't do anything. Why I feel in the face of all the problems of the world impotent. And why I somehow cannot manage to transform I. Now here we get to the real problem. Because we're always telling each other that we should be different. Now I'm not going to tell you that tonight. Why not? Because I know you can't be. Nor can I. That may sound depressing, but I'll show you it isn't. It's very heartening. But everybody, you see, who is at all sensitive and awake to their own problems and human problems is trying to change himself. We know we can't change the world unless we change ourselves. If we are all individually selfish, we're going to be collectively selfish. If we don't really love people and only pretend to, somehow we've got to find a way to love. After all, it's said in the Bible, thou shalt love the Lord thy God and your neighbor as yourself. You must love. Yeah, we all agree. Sure. But we don't. In fact, one psychologist very smartly asked a patient, with whom are you in love against? And this particularly becomes appalling when we enter into the realm of higher things, by which I mean spiritual development. Everybody these days is interested in spiritual development. And wisely, because we want to change our consciousness. Many people are well aware that this egocentric consciousness is a hallucination. And that they presume it's the function of religion to change it. Because that's what the Zen Buddhists and yogis and all these people in the Orient are doing. They are changing their state of consciousness to get something called satori, or mystical experience, or nirvana, or moksha, or what have you. And everybody around here is really enthused about that, because you don't get that in church. I mean, there have been Christian mystics, but the church has been very quiet about them. But the average church, all you get is talk. There's no meditation, no spiritual discipline. They tell God what to do interminably, as if he didn't know. And then they tell the people what to do, as if they could or even wanted to. And then they sing religious nursery rhymes. And then, to cap it all, the Roman Catholic Church, which did at least have an unintelligible service, which was, you know, it was real mysterious and suggestive, vast magic going on. They went and put the thing into bad English. And they took away incense, and they became a bunch of Protestants, and the thing was just terrible. So now all these Catholics are at loose ends, as Claire Booth Luce put it, not to be a pun, but she said, you know, it's no longer possible to practice contemplative prayer at Mass. Because you're being advised, exhorted, edified all the time. And it becomes a bore. Think of God listening to all those prayers. I mean, talking about grieving the Holy Spirit. It's just awful. People have no consideration for God at all. So, but in pursuing these spiritual disciplines, yoga and Zen and so forth, and also psychotherapy, there comes up a big difficulty. And the big difficulty is this. I want to find a method whereby I can change my consciousness. But therefore to improve myself. But the self that needs to be improved is the one that is doing the improving. And so I'm rather stuck. I find out the reason that I think I believe, say, in God, is that I sure hope that somehow God will rescue me. In other words, I want to hang on to my own existence. And I feel rather shaky about doing that for myself, but I just hope there's a God who will take care of it. Or, if I could be loving, I would have a better opinion of myself. I'd feel better about it. I could face myself, as people say, if I were more loving. So the unloving me, somehow, by some gimmickry, has to turn itself into a loving me, and this is just like trying to lift yourself off the ground with your own bootstraps. It can't be done. And that's why religion, in practice, mainly produces hypocrisy and guilt, because of the constant failure of these enterprises. Now, people go and study Zen, and they come back and say, wow, getting rid of your ego is a superhuman task. I assure you it's going to be very, very difficult to get rid of your ego. You're going to have to sit for a long time, and you're going to get the sorest legs. It's hard work. And all you wretched kids who think you're getting rid of your ego on part or something or other, and easy yoga, you don't know what you're in for when it really comes down to the nitty-gritty. Well, you know, the biggest ego trip going is getting rid of your ego. And the joke of it all is your ego doesn't exist. There's nothing to get rid of. It's an illusion, as I tried to explain. But you still want to ask how to stop the illusion. Now, who's asking?
I am.
I mean, do you think, in the ordinary sense in which you use the word I, how can I stop identifying myself with the wrong me? Well, the answer is simply you can't. The Christians put this in their way when they say that mystical experience is a gift of divine grace. Man, as such, cannot achieve this experience. It is a gift of...
Hey, Aaron, that's you, right? Because I blocked the other motherfucker, that second. Whoever cloned your fucking account name, bro. It was weird because I can see how the real account, yours has your initials on that shit. That second account just had like the standard little blank face looking person. So I blocked that other one. I want to see how motherfuckers be doing that shit, cloning motherfuckers' account like that, popping up in the same fucking stream. People are so fucking weird. They have shit else to fucking do, bro. You got shit else to
And
fucking do.
if God doesn't give it to you, there's no way of getting it. Now that is solidly true. You can't do anything about it because you don't exist. Well, you say that's pretty depressing news. But the whole point is it isn't depressing news. It is the joyous news. There's a Zen poem which puts it like this, talking about it. It means the mystical experience, Satori, the realization that you are the eternal energy of the universe, like Jesus did. It says like this: you cannot catch hold of it, nor can you get rid of it. In not being able to get it, you get it. When you speak, it's silent. When you are silent, it speaks. Now, in not being able to get it, you get it. Because this whole feeling, what Krishnamurti is trying to explain to people, for example, when he says, why do you ask for a method? There is no method. All methods are simply gimmicks for strengthening your ego. So how do we not do that? He says, you're still asking for a method. There is no method. If you really understand what your I is, you will see there is no method. This is so...
Yeah, like I said,
so
it didn't seem too bad, but still,
But
it's just the fact.
This is the
get
gospel,
fuck out of
the
here,
good
bro. Why
news.
is he even doing that? There's no need
Because
to do that.
if you cannot achieve it, if you cannot transform yourself, that means that the main obstacle to mystical vision has collapsed. That was you. What happens? You can't do anything about it. You're at your wit's end. What are you going to do? Commit suicide? But supposing you just put that off for a little while. Wait and see what happens. You can't control your thoughts. You can't control your feelings, because there is no controller. You are your thoughts and your feelings. And they're running along, running along, running along. Just sit and watch them. There they go. You're still breathing, aren't you? Still growing your hair? Still seeing and hearing? Are you doing that? I mean, is breathing something that you do?
Something you do? Or is it a habit?
Do you see? I mean, do you organize the operations of your eyes? Know exactly how to work those rods and cones in the retina? Do you do that? It's a happening. It happens. So you can feel all this happening. Your breathing is happening. Your thinking is happening. Your feeling is happening. Your hearing, your seeing. The clouds are happening across the sky. The sky is happening blue. The sun is happening shining. There it is. All this happening. And may I introduce you? This is yourself.
May I introduce you to yourself? This is you. Everything that's fucking happening right now is you. You're all a part of it. We're all a part of the big picture.
Everybody should do in their lifetime sometime two things. One is to consider death.
I think about death all the time.
to observe skulls and skeletons and to wonder what it will be like to go to sleep and never wake up. Never. That is a very gloomy thing for contemplation. But it's like manure. Just as manure fertilizes the plants and so on. So the contemplation of death and the acceptance of death is very highly generative of creative life. You get wonderful things out of that. And the other thing to contemplate is to follow the possibility of the idea that you are totally selfish. That you don't have a good thing to be said for you at all. You are a complete, utter rascal. Now, the Christians have avoided this. Because although they say in their Episcopalian form of confession that we have erred and strayed from thy ways like lost sheep, and we have followed too much the devices and desires of our own hearts, too much. We have offended against thy holy laws. We have left undone those things which we ought to have done, and we have done those things which we ought not to have done. And there is no health in us. But it ought to be different. And we're going to do our best to amend with the help of God's grace. And that is a real con act. Because if you equate health with genuine love and perfect unselfishness, then in that sense there is no health in us when we look at ourselves from this point of view. Now, when you go deeply into the nature of selfishness, what do you discover? You say, I love myself, I seek my own advantage. Now, what is the self that I love? What do I want? And that becomes an increasingly ever-deepening puzzle. Now, I've often referred to this when you say to somebody else, I love you.
Exile, what's up?
It's always rather disconcerting to the person to whom you say that. If you imply that you love them with a pure, disinterested, and holy love, they automatically suspect it as being a little bit phony. But if you say, I love you so much I could eat you, that's an expression, it's a way of saying to a person, you attract me so much that I can't help it. I'm absolutely bowled over by you. I'm gone. And people like that. Then they feel they're really being loved. And it's absolutely genuine. But now, I love you so much I could eat you. Now what the devil do I want? I certainly don't want to eat the girl in the sense of literally devouring her, because then she'd disappear. But I love myself. And what is me? In what way do I know me? Well, it suddenly occurs to me that I know me only in terms of you. See, when I think of anything that I know and that I like, then it's always something that can be viewed as other than me. I can never get to look at me, real me. It's always behind. It's always hidden. And I really don't know it well enough to know whether I love it or not. Maybe I don't. Maybe it's an appalling... And that the main task of the psychotherapist is to do what he called to integrate the evil. To, as it were, put the devil in us in its proper function. Because you see, it's always the devil, the unacknowledged one, the outcast, the scapegoat, the bastard, the bad guy, you see, the black sheep of the family. It's always from that point, which we could call the fly in the ointment, you see, that generation comes. In other words, in the same way as in the drama, to have the play, it's necessary to introduce a villain. It's necessary to introduce a certain element of trouble. So, in the whole scheme of life, there has to be the shadow. Because without the shadow, there can't be the substance. So this is why there is a very strange association between crime and all naughty things and holiness. You see, holiness is way beyond being good. Good people aren't necessarily holy people. A holy person is one who is whole, who has, as it were, reconciled his opposites. And so there's always something slightly scary about holy people. And other people react to them in very strange ways. They can't make up their minds whether they're saints or devils. And so holy people have throughout history always created a great deal of trouble, along with their creative results. Take Jesus, for example. The trouble that Jesus created is absolutely incalculable. Think of the Crusades, the Inquisition, the heaven only knows what's gone on in the name of Jesus. Very remarkable. Freud's a big troublemaker. Jung had a tremendous humor. And he knew that nobody can be completely honest. That you will try and you'll have a great deal of success in exploring your motivations and your dark, unconscious depths. But there will be a certain point at which you will say, well, I've had enough of that. You know? Do you see how, in a strange way, there's a certain sanity in that? When a person indulges in a certain kind of implicity of deception, there is something, you all laughed when I said that. There was something humorous about it.
I don't know. I probably put about 12 hours into this so far, 10 hours, something like that. I've only been working on it for about 3 days, but it's a commission piece, and so this is a paid project. So I'm not rushing it, but I am working on it more than I work on my own art. When it's just my own art, I'll work on that shit like 4 hours a day and put it down, or sometimes I'll work 8 hours a day and put it down. But like this, when I have a commission, I work as much as the paint allows me to. You know, if it's dry and it's ready for another layer, I just go ahead and hop right on it and try to keep it moving. This piece is on my standard size canvas. This is an 18 by 24 inch canvas. Well, actually this way it's 24 inches by 18. So it's not very large. And I choose this size for my standard size canvas because for that reason. It's not a really big canvas, but it's not a really small canvas. You can clearly see this across the room in any size room, but it's not going to take up like so much wall space and be completely overbearing. And at the same time, for a canvas this size, it normally doesn't take me a long time to get these done. And actually, I've been working a lot off camera as well. If I'm in the studio, honestly, on camera, if I'm in here for 4 hours, I probably paint for like an hour and a half and talk the rest of the time. So once again, for commission projects, I want to be as diligent and as time effective as possible. So a lot of the time I won't stream. And not saying I don't want you guys to not see the progress, but like, you know how it is in the mornings, man. I'm a talker, yo. We sit in here, we have good ass conversations and stuff, and that takes a lot of time away from the actual painting portion. So until I get really, really close to the end of this piece, I will be taking several sessions in here where I won't be on camera. I'll just be in here strictly going at the paint and just trying to get this thing to look nice. I said this already has a home and an owner waiting for it, so Like, so I just want to get it done in a timely manner. And no matter how fast or how many hours I work on it, there's only so much I can do at a given time. Once again, because this is oil paint, and they don't dry overnight like that. You know, some colors dry faster than others, but and just speaking in general, oil paints do take a while to dry. So I'll work up until a point where I can't work anymore, and then I'll set it to the side until it dries enough for me to be able to get back to it. Anytime you do a solid background or a multicolored background, something similar to this, it's always better to have the tones lighten up closer towards the portrait to give them that halo effect. It just looks nice like that. I could have did the gradation a little bit broader and pull the pink out a little bit more. Actually, on the next layer of paint, when I go over this background again, I may pull the pinks out a little bit closer to the edge. Looks really good though. Really close to trying to get this lilac color in there. Lilac is like a pinkish purple almost. Really pretty color. Look at me work. Oh shit. Look at me work. Oh shit. Look at me work. Look at me work. Look at me. Oh shit.
This humor is a very funny thing. Basically, humor is an attitude of laughter about oneself. There is malicious humor, which is laughing at other people. But real deep humor is laughter at oneself. Now, why fundamentally do you laugh about yourself? What makes you laugh about yourself? Isn't it because you know that there is a big difference between what goes on the outside and what goes on the inside? That if I hint, you see, that your inside is the opposite of your outside, it makes people laugh. If I don't do it unkindly. If I get up in the attitude of a preacher and say, you're a bunch of miserable sinners and you ought to be different, nobody laughs. But if I say, well, after all, boys will be boys and girls will be girls, and we all know, then people laugh. Now, you see, what's happening when we do that? Now, I passed you around a lot of embroidery to look at before we start. And I'm perfectly sure that you got the point. That there's a big difference between the front and the back. In some forms of embroidery, the back is very different from the front because people take shortcuts. In the front, everything is orderly, and it is supposed to be kind of messy on the back side. See, which side will you wear? You've got to be sure you get the front in the front, have the back in the back. The back has all the little tricks in it, all the shortcuts, all the lowdown that people don't acknowledge, you see. And it's exactly the same with the way we live. You know, like sweeping the dust under the carpet in a hurry just before the guests come. I mean, we do Ever so many things like that. And if you don't do it, if you don't think you do it, and you think, well, really, my embroidery is the same on both sides, see? Well, you're deceiving yourself. Because what you're doing is you're taking the shortcuts in another dimension, which you're keeping out of consciousness. Everybody takes the shortcuts. Everybody plays tricks. Everybody has in himself an element of duplicity.
I got this paint off my rag. God damn it.
Because you see, from this point of view that I'm discussing, where the web is the trap, to be is to deceive. Think of camouflage. The chameleon who changes its color. Think of the butterfly pretending it has eyes.
Yeah.
Think of the flower saying to the bee, like my honey. Bee says, wow. But then that means that the bee has to be, and it has to go on living, and all the trouble it takes to go around collecting honey and raising other bees and organizing itself and doing that dance which tells the other bees where there's more honey. There's all that stuff to do. But the flower was deceptive. Now, in the same way I've often said, well, life is a drama, and a drama is a deception. It's a big act. When you
people are the hardest thing to paint. If you see anybody who paints people very, very well, then they can paint anything. A car ain't shit to paint. A building, there's nothing to it. A flower, there's nothing. It's easy. If you can make people look real, everything else is easy. I mean, super, super easy. Like, it's like child's play, actually. Me painting a car is so fucking easy, it doesn't make any sense. It's child's play. When we paint some teapots, when we paint a lake, a beach scene or something like that, some birds flying, when we paint a dog catching a frisbee, all that shit is easy as fuck. Painting people is hard. Painting people is the hardest thing to do. If you can paint people well, you can paint anything else. I can paint anything. I don't give a fuck what it is. And most of the time, the things that I paint look better than the shit in real life. I'm just saying. But I like people. I don't really like cars. I'm not a big car guy. I don't give a fuck about chrome rims and what brand tires or, you know, how many horsepower is in a vehicle. That shit can get me to and fro from A to B. I'm good to go. I don't give a fuck about cars like that. So I don't paint cars like that. I think people are special, beautiful, important, individual. And so I like painting lots of people. Because I can have the exact same car as somebody else. They didn't make just one of them. Even if it is some high-end Bugatti, Bentley, or some shit, I can have that exact same car as someone else. You can never have the exact same person as someone else. You just, even if they're twins, they're still different people. Oh yeah. Now, if you see somebody who paints cars really well, and they're really good at painting and drawing cars, they probably can't draw people. I'm telling you right now. If you specialize in anything else, you can't really draw people. But if you specialize in people, you can draw almost anything else perfectly. I've only ever done 2 car paintings, and I sold one of them, and the other one is so old it's like sitting down in the basement somewhere. Go grab a water or something real quick. I'm parched as a bitch right
Then
now.
you don't really understand the nature of an onion. You might look for the pit in the center,
Yo, another
like
bag.
ordinary
What up?
fruit has. But the onion doesn't have a center. It's all skins. So when you get right down, there's nothing but a bunch
Paint
of
me as a
skins.
blunt. I want to see what it feels like to be smoked.
That was a kind of disappointing.
Barbara. This thing looking good, girl.
But of
Oh,
course you have to
shit, that.
understand that the skins were the part that you eat. Well, in rather the same way, you see, you find when you explore yourself and your motivations, and you go through.
I
and
definitely
you
can
try
do
to
it for
find
you.
out that thing which is
Oh, you
really
make models?
genuine.
That's what's up, yo.
That's why it's
I
disciplined.
I used to build Gundam Wing models. Anybody knows what Gundam Wing is? It's a Japanese anime, but they have these model kits. I had 2 perfect grade Gundam Wing kits. They're like $300 a piece, yo. It's just like 5,000 pieces to put together, but once you put together like a Gundam Wing battle suit, man, that shit is satisfying. It's really nice. I gotta get an. I think for my birthday next year, I might get myself one. I might get myself one for Christmas this year. I'm not sure, but I'm gonna get myself another Gundam Wing model kit, yo. I love putting those things together. I've only done 3 of them so far. No, 4 of them. I did 2 perfect grades, and then I did. My ex had got me some smaller ones for a birthday one year.
They give you koans which require a perfectly genuine act. An act of total and absolute sincerity. And people knock themselves out trying to do this thing, but they always know that the master's going to catch them. Because he reads their thought. You know that story of von Kleist about the man who had a fight with a bear, and the bear could read his thoughts, so that the only way of hitting the bear was to do so not on purpose, because the bear would know in advance. So it's the same in working with a Zen master.
Ain't nothing like that water. Damn, girl, I swear you gonna live a long time. I just was like literally was just talking about you. See, this is the whole thing. I need a secretary. I need somebody like you to make this shit legit. I can't think of all this shit myself. But that's what like she don't understand. Like this shit is a business. All you gotta do is use. They are, yeah, they are. You just haven't, you just don't see them a lot. But that'll be what's up, though. Yeah, but nigga, you ain't gonna be at BBW next year. He said, it don't matter. I'm gonna have photographs to prove. That's crazy. sounds like a good ass plan. Just put all of it. Yeah, the only thing with my art though is I gotta keep it in a realm where it's gonna always be expensive. Like a calendar, yeah, but you can buy a calendar for like 10 bucks, 15 bucks. Yeah. 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 That sounds. But that's how ideas grow. That sounds like something. That sounds like something. You're onto something. Rickens. Well, find me some BBW models that want to send me some naked pictures, yo. I've been trying to put together some new BBW paintings, but big girls act like they too ashamed to get naked for the camera. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What you doing right now? You at work? Oh, I know that's right. Right down. Where Jarrell at? That's good ideas. But you off today? Alright. Well, I'm huh? Yeah. Well, I'm in the studio live on camera right now. Let me finish up this session. It's already got patents on it. But yeah, just I'm a brainstorm some more about the ideas you're tossing around, and since you off today, I'll call back later on and we can talk about it some more. What's up, man? What's up? What was that message you sent me to what? To un something? What? Huh? Unmemorize it. What does that mean? Yeah, but what does that mean? Okay. Well, let me. I have to talk to you about that later. Like I say I'm on stream right now, so I'll call you guys back this afternoon. Okay. All right. I love you. Goodbye. Oh my God. So that was my son and his mom. That was weird. It was a weird conversation. Hello.
So you explore the onion, and you go in and in and in, and then you find,
Hello.
well,
how are you?
it's
How
all
are
in
you
the
doing?
perception.
All right, one more time.
Now then the question arises, who's deceiving who? Who's fooling who? I'm fooling me? What is fooling? Fooling is playing like you're there when you're not.
Oh yeah.
You know, getting somebody else to answer your name in the roll call. So, we're all, you see, this is the metaphysical basis of it. This is what the Hindus mean by Maya, the world illusion. The world is playing it's there when it isn't. And it's a trap. And it sucks you in. And you can't get out of it. And it's a thorough big trap too. But always, when you get an idea like this, or a feeling like this, follow it to its extreme. Don't back out from it. If you find you're selfish, go to the extreme of what selfishness means. Confusion largely results from not following feelings or ideas to their death. You know, people think they want to be immortal. They'd like to live forever. Do you really want to do that? Think about it. Really go into it, what it would be like. People say they want this, that, and the other. They want this kind of car, they want this kind of dress, or so on, and this much money, and so on. It's always a good idea to think it right through. What it would involve to be in that situation, to have those desires fulfilled. Also, when you form a relationship to another person, think it through too. You see? How inconvenient could they be? However attractive. And always turn the embroidery round and look at the underside, but don't get caught doing it. See, that's something one does on the side in secret, because otherwise you play the game that everything is as it's supposed to be on the front. But that makes you humorous, and that makes you human.
A think tank in the UK says too many kids are what's making the planet worse.
In many black communities, for every child actually born, 3 others are aborted, more than double the rate among whites. Some say abortion is the #1 killer in the black community.
African Americans here in this country are the only ethnic group in any place on the globe that's not replacing themselves. This is genocide.
Hillary Clinton received the Margaret Sanger Award. This is a woman who started an organization called Planned Parenthood, and that woman called black people human weeds.
An organization whose founder believed in eugenics.
The goal? To rid the country of the feeble-minded, defectives.
States in the United States refusing to compensate victims who were forcibly sterilized because they were deemed unfit to reproduce.
They could keep certain segments of the population from reproducing, that all the world's problems would disappear. And so
we have spent the past few weeks calling and emailing politicians in California, and the silence has been astonishing.
Welcome to this talk. It's called The Science Agenda to Exterminate Blacks. This is a fact-based presentation, but it is not politically correct in the status quo halls of science and medicine because they don't want this talked about. And they especially don't want it talked about by a white scientist. And I'll give you a little bit of information about my background soon so you understand where I'm coming from and why I'm taking the steps to go public with this information. The truth is there is a concerted, organized, long-standing effort to eliminate African Americans from the human gene pool. Not just African Americans, by the way, but Africans. This is happening right now. You are being subjected to it. It's happening through multiple vectors of science, medicine, and food that I will detail here in this talk, and it's all being done covertly. So almost no one is aware of this. The entire mainstream media refuses to acknowledge this. The scientific community will say that none of this is true. And yet, if you look at the facts that I'm going to share with you and the history that's undeniable, you will see there is a concerted, organized effort to eliminate blacks, i.e. African Americans. I'm going to use those terms interchangeably just for brevity here. But there is an effort to eliminate those people from the human gene pool. My background, just so you know, my name is Mike Adams. I'm known as the Health Ranger. I am a lab science director. I founded and built a world-class analytical laboratory from scratch. It is ISO accredited. It's recognized around the world for analytical science of heavy metals and food contamination, environmental contamination, and so on. We've done volunteer work, testing over 600 samples of the U.S. water supply, and we've also volunteered our lab efforts to Native American tribes who have been impacted by the EPA's poisoning of their rivers. So, by the way, it's not just blacks that are trying to be eliminated by the status quo. It's also Native Americans and other minority groups that are routinely targeted by not just the EPA, but other groups that we'll talk about here. I do want you to know that because I am an outspoken science whistleblower, that I am maliciously attacked, defamed, lied about. I am targeted for intimidation tactics. They try to silence my words. They try to make sure that you can't hear this talk. I've been death threatened. I've been stalked. I have to live a lifestyle of extreme secrecy. And I'm armed 24/7, including right now. And this is what it takes in our world today to tell the truth about science and medicine, especially when you are uncovering a mass agenda of genocide and eugenics, which is very prevalent through our systems of science and medicine today. So I do want all of you to know, all of you who are watching, and if you're sharing this with your friends and colleagues, I do want you to know that I'm putting myself at risk to say these things, especially as a credible scientist of an accredited laboratory facility, which has everything to do with the heavy metals poisoning that we're going to talk about. They absolutely don't want this information getting out. So let's start with something that we can all easily agree upon because it has been in the news everywhere, and that is the heavy metals poisoning of the predominantly black communities of Flint, Michigan. So no one says that's a conspiracy theory, right? The water supply for millions of citizens in that region, who again were predominantly black, was allowed to be deliberately poisoned with lead, a toxic heavy metal that causes bone disorders, but more importantly, it causes a kind of brain lobotomy. It causes loss of cognitive function. It reduces IQs. It causes heart problems and many other problems. This was deliberately allowed to poison the water supply of Flint, Michigan, knowing that that water supply served minority communities. And in fact, this was so deliberate and it was so criminal that the Attorney General of Michigan has so far filed at least 43 criminal charges against predominantly scientists and bureaucrats who ran teams of scientists, water quality experts, and so on, many of whom have been charged with felony crimes. Now, water quality officials in Flint, Michigan were tasked with testing the water and making sure that it was, clean or safe to drink. And yet, every time they showed lead in the water, they covered it up. They ditched that sample, they deleted it from the spreadsheet, they replaced it with another sample from some other source. They committed massive scientific fraud, and they did this deliberately to cover up the fact that the African American population of Flint, Michigan, or Detroit, greater Detroit, was being systematically poisoned. And this was going on year after year. And it could be going on now in other cities across the country. What we have found in our testing is that about 6.9% of the municipal water in America is poisoned with heavy metals. We published those numbers at naturalsciencejournal.org in a science paper that shows you the actual data. It turns out that those areas that are most affected by these toxic heavy metals tend to be those with a predominantly larger population of African Americans. So it's the minority communities that are being impacted more so than, let's say, rich white communities. Getting back to the Flint, Michigan situation, we know that they knew about this and they failed to tell people. They covered it up and they allowed it to continue. They deliberately allowed millions of children and adults, senior citizens, who were predominantly black, to be poisoned with this toxic heavy metal. Would that have happened in a rich California white community? I doubt it. I doubt it. In 2007, Chicago convened a breast cancer task force to try to figure out why so many black men and women were dying of cancer. For black women, it's mostly breast cancer. For black men, it's mostly prostate cancer. And across the cancer industry, every doctor will tell you that cancers are known to be far more severe in African American patients than, let's say, Caucasian patients. But they don't understand why. And I'll tell you why. It's a very simple reason. It has everything to do with melanin in the skin.
Boy, this motherfucker about to get deep. Can I agree say? Dr. Layla Africa talks about this. Why diseases are more harsh on black people than white people. Because we have an extra layer of immunity and cellular regeneration. Just because our genetic code can produce large amounts of melanin. Melanin boosts our immune system. Melanin boosts our neural networks, so our synapses fire more rapidly. It makes us better. So if you're a black person, a person of color who's highly melanated, by the time a white doctor notices that you have symptoms, you're past their perception of what illness is, because by the time it shows up where they can see it, you're way sicker than what they would ever be, because now this sickness has already fucking moved past all of your extra layers of immunity to the point where you're showing symptoms. So if a white doctor says you're this sick, you're actually probably twice as sick as that. Because our bodies just function different. It takes a lot more to damage us. It takes a lot more to infect us. It takes a lot more to get us sick. And so by the time, if we show symptoms, we're already fucked by their scales and standards. You know what I'm saying? I don't mind painting white people. If they pay me. I've painted white people before. I've painted white people just for the fun of it. Just because I know some cool white people and I wanted to paint them. Very special people to me. One of my uncles, a white dude, been married to my aunt for 27 years. I painted him. My girlfriend's white. I painted her. There's one of my art homies. He's this like 60-something-year-old Russian dude. Barely speaks English. I painted a picture of him. He's cool as fuck. But for the most part, when people bring up this issue of me not liking to paint white people, think about this. How many white artists, how many Caucasian artists do you see that predominantly paint black people? Like that's their main thing. You know, who may paint a white person here or there, but mostly they like painting black people. You don't find many white artists like that, if any. So, since there are like thousands upon thousands of artists out there, a lot of them are white. Most of them are white, and they love painting white people. I don't think they need any help. I think they got that shit covered. I think no matter what I do, some white person out there is going to be painting some white people. I guarantee you. I guarantee you right now, as I'm painting these two black people, there's some white person out there painting two white people. And there's probably a lot more white artists painting way more white people way faster than I can paint black people. They don't need my help. They do not need my help. I need some more help. I need more black artists painting black people. You know what I'm saying? I need more people doing this, helping me out. Show me the money. Show me the money. I'll paint anything. I'll paint dogs, cats, birds, trains, bicycles, Caucasians. It don't matter. But for my own personal art, the shit that makes me feel good, the shit that makes me feel inspired, that makes me happy, is pretty brown people. Just beautiful brown people, black brown people. You know, I love that shit. I love that shit. Let me say, if I never in my life ever again paint another white person, that shit is not gonna put a dent in white people art. Trust me. I'm not gonna put a dent in white people being painted. There's plenty of white people gonna keep painting white people, man. Trust me. They don't, like I said, man, they don't need my help.
If you have darker skin pigmentation, because your ancestors came from a region closer to the equator, where sun exposure is more intense. And so the melanin in the skin is designed to block UV radiation. It's a built-in sunscreen. It's actually a feature. You know, black skin is a feature, it's a survival mechanism of those whose ancestors lived near the equator. But it blocks vitamin D production at the same time, you see? Because the ancestors, all of our ancestors, were outdoors people. They spent their time outdoors. They didn't live in offices. They didn't work indoors all day long. So they had too much sun. And so the dark skin pigmentation blocked the excessive sun, and it protected them from UV radiation. Well, today, we all live indoors, don't we, for the most part? Indoor lifestyles, office jobs, even people who work in hospitals are working indoors. And when black people work indoors or live indoors, they become sunlight deficient, especially because of the melanin in their skin. So now that same feature of their skin that blocked excessive sun radiation in, let's say, Africa, now in New Jersey or New York, it's a detriment because it's causing African American populations to become deficient in vitamin D. And this is what's happening in Chicago and Detroit, and especially the more northern latitudes of northern United States, Canada, and so on. Black men in the UK have very high rates of prostate cancer, and when they get diagnosed with prostate cancer, the prognosis is less positive than, let's say, a white person with prostate cancer. The cancers are more aggressive, they're more deadly. The answer is lack of vitamin D, and yet in 2007, this Chicago Breast Cancer Task Force convened, I think, over 100 doctors and nurses to try to have a powwow, a team effort to try to figure out why is cancer worse in black people in Chicago. And wouldn't you know it, after spending days or even weeks on this project, they couldn't come up with the truth. The truth that people with dark skin are sunlight deficient, they're vitamin D deficient, and that's why the cancer is more aggressive, because vitamin D halts cancer. And vitamin D can be purchased for $0.05 a day. Every black person in Chicago, in Detroit, in New York, in the UK could prevent cancer. About 4 out of 5 cancers, by the way, with nothing but vitamin D. And yet the cancer industry won't tell them that. So here's a case where you have a disease that is disproportionately more aggressive in blacks versus whites. In white people, they absorb sunlight more efficiently when they're outdoors, so they need less time in the sun to generate the same amount of vitamin D as a black person who needs more time in the sun. And yet nobody is telling African Americans this simple truth. Nobody. This information is being denied the black community in America. And it's just like
you talking about Detroit and New York and shit like that, but I'm from South Carolina. My grandma told me that shit, like, well, you better go get you some sun. You ain't been outside the house today? That's just like common sense. You need sunlight. You need the sun to touch your skin every day. You need to get in the sun every day. Like, even if I don't fucking have errands and shit to do, I just go stand outside, motherfucker. I gotta go get that sun. It's something about it. I feel different when I stand in the sun for a little while. Literally, I can feel that shit. It's like photosynthesis or some shit, bro. But he's like, oh, they're not telling black people they need vitamin D. It's like, well, just get more sun. Get more sunlight. Go sit outside, man. Next time you roll a spliff, go smoke that shit outside on the back porch in the sun.
I think a very small part of the overall vector that I'm going to be continuing to reveal here that is an effort to exterminate blacks. Now let's talk about the abortion industry. I'm not going to download politics on you about whether you think abortion should be legal or illegal in the third trimester and legal in the other two or whatever. That's your deal. That's another day, another topic. My point is that abortion ends a life, and it ends certainly a potential life. And I say abortion ends a living human baby. Now, abortion centers are deliberately set up where? Predominantly black communities. Abortion messaging and abortion marketing is more aggressive toward black communities than it is white communities or non-black communities. The Planned Parenthood / abortion industry needs a steady supply of black women getting pregnant and wanting to terminate those pregnancies in order for them to be able to harvest tissue and organs from partial birth abortions, which are almost all black babies. Now, a partial birth abortion, in case you're not familiar,
if you ever read Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, the first chapter starts out with a group of kids who are on somewhat of a field trip looking at one of the birthing clinics, because sexual reproduction is long in the past, and everybody is created a certain way, and they're made specifically for their job or their place in society, and they're showing the young kids how the process is actually done and how they clone the egg, the embryos, and they can make so many hundreds of clones off of one embryo. And then Aldous Huxley even puts in there the scientists in the story. The two scientists are talking to each other, and they say, well, how many clones did we get from our best embryo? And he says, well, we got such and such number, but the other laboratory in the other state, they got such and such number, which was greater. And he says that they got more clones off of their embryo because they had Negro DNA to work with, and they have an added bonus. It's like everybody knows it. Even when you read science fiction or what was passed off as science fiction, he says that even in the future, in cloning programs, you know, just that Negro, that black DNA, that shit just works better for everything. Everything you want to try to do, like get some black tissue samples and use that shit. These abortion clinics, when these motherfuckers want those stem cells and all that shit, man, they need the ones that got melanin in it. You know what I'm saying? Because that's the full genetic code. Everybody got, you know, our fucking genetic codes. But black genes have that extra code, that code that's switched on to produce melanin in the skin. White people produce melanin in their hair and in their eyes, and that's it. People of color produce melanin in their hair, their eyes, their skin, their organs, everything, especially really, really, really dark people. So those stem cells are highly, highly sought after.
This is when there's a baby that could be born and could be brought into this world, is capable of breathing and living. It's conscious. It has memories. It has sensory complexity. It has consciousness. It has feelings. And it's partially born. Let's say just the head is born. And then at that moment, the abortion center murders that baby. And then they harvest the organs. They will harvest the brainstem. They will harvest the lungs. They will harvest the kidneys. They will harvest the heart. And you know what they do with those tissues? Well, we're told they use them for medical research. It turns out most of those tissues are sold to vaccine manufacturers. And they use those tissues to grow biomass for vaccines that are then injected into other children. And this is openly admitted by the vaccine industry and the CDC. And on my website, Natural News, we have shown screenshots of the ingredients lists of these vaccines, such as chickenpox vaccines. Varicella uses human fetal tissue. And that human fetal tissue comes predominantly from black babies. So it's not just that the abortion centers are set up in predominantly black communities to reduce the population numbers of black children and future black adults, but it's also that those black children are having their organs harvested in order to make vaccines that are injected into other babies. There is a kind of racial medical cannibalism that is taking place in America today, and it combines the evil of the Planned Parenthood abortion industry and the vaccine industry, combines all that with an overlay of eugenics and genocide. And by the way, if you don't think that abortion is tied to a history of eugenics and genocide, you need to read the history of Margaret Sanger, one of the key founders of Planned Parenthood, who called black people human weeds, and she said that it's better to kill black babies in the womb so that they don't become adults. Now I'm paraphrasing that, I don't know the exact quote, but it's something along those lines. She saw abortion as a key vector of exterminating the black population in our world, and that goal is being carried out today. And by the way, she was so effective with this narrative and with this obscene, twisted logic of genocide that the Nazis borrowed her narrative and her mindset and said, that sounds like a good idea, let's apply it to the Jews. So Adolf Hitler and the Third Reich, their Holocaust against the Jews was modeled after the Planned Parenthood founder Margaret Sanger eugenics genocide model that continues today in America. There is a Holocaust in America today, and it's a Holocaust that specifically targets black Americans. And yet, there is virtually no outcry. Now, in case you're having difficulty believing any of this, let's go to the news. Let's go to what's being widely reported about medical experiments targeting African babies. All right? And you can find the article and the sources for this on naturalnews.com. Officials of Pfizer, a major drug company and vaccine manufacturer, are under arrest in Nigeria. And I'm going to read you a little bit here, and I apologize for the pronunciation here, but Judge Shehu Atiku in the city of Kano said that the Nigerian Pfizer head, Ngozi Idozian, and senior company officials from Pfizer, Laure Bale and Segun Domburo, failed to appear in court in compliance with a court order that's seeking a $2.6 billion fine from Pfizer, charging that the company illegally tested an experimental antibiotic known as Trovan on children in Kano during a meningitis outbreak in 1996. You see, they use disease to test new drugs, and by the way, you'll find out the industry is spreading the disease in order to push the vaccines, and they always use Africans for their experiments. It's across the board. Well, I'll give you more examples. This illegal experiment on African children led to the deaths of 11 children, and dozens of other children experienced severe harm. Now, that shouldn't surprise anyone because it rings true with the history of the Tuskegee syphilis experiments. Those experiments conducted in the United States with the approval of U.S. health authorities and government authorities was begun in 1932, and there were over 600 volunteers who were exploited by the medical system. These were black men predominantly. They were exploited by the system. They were told they were going to receive phenomenal care, that they were going to get extra money, that they were going to be treated well. Instead, they were denied treatment so that the medical establishment, again, these are scientists, so that they could observe the progression of this disease as black men suffered and died. And this wasn't in Africa, this was on U.S. soil. This was in the 1930s. And this is one where they got caught, because there have been dozens of other examples of this kind of medical experimentation in the United States, which usually targets black people, black prisoners in particular. We can talk about the prison industry and how it's a business. That's another topic. But once they get people into that prison system, they then use them for medical experiments, and they have done so routinely throughout American history. And if you think that the American government has gone out of its way to protect blacks in America, you need to go back and reread your history. The FBI wrote a letter encouraging Martin Luther King Jr. to commit suicide. The FBI ran violent raids on black civil rights groups throughout the 1960s and 70s. And to this day, the FBI runs domestic terrorism operations that they call sting operations, where the FBI sets up the plan, the FBI gets the fake bombs, the FBI acquires the vehicle. Whatever the agenda calls for, they'll go after you. And in science and medicine, they're going after you right now. So let's continue. Let me give you more evidence, because I want you to judge this on the evidence. Now, and just a quick side note, you notice how the recent Ebola outbreak, well, a couple years ago, happened in Africa. Now, I don't have proof of this, but there are many in the industry of the immunization industry, vaccine industry, holistic medicine industries who believe that those strains of Ebola were weaponized and were allowed to escape.
I heard that shit too, man.
In order to assess.
Man, some of them strains of Ebola, man, the government got a patent on that shit. How you got a patent on a fucking virus, bitch. You must have made that shit. Or manipulated it. You found the Ebola virus and made it more deadly. Let me put a patent on that.
The epidemiological impact, and to test new drugs, and also as a false flag to push more funding for Ebola vaccines in the United States. And that nurse that was brought to Texas was allowed to come in and was allowed to spread Ebola to another person in Texas, which is what happened, so that they could call for more vaccines. They create a panic. They create the outbreak, and then they push billions of dollars of funding for more vaccines. In Africa, there are groups that provide vaccines to young African women. And these vaccines are often disguised as tetanus shots. And this is done usually in conjunction with UNICEF, the global group, UNICEF, and also Kiwanis International, which is supposed to be, a community group across the United States and elsewhere. They have a project they've used to give tetanus vaccines to black women in Africa. The name of this project, and I kid you not, I'm not making this up, the name of the project is the Eliminate Project. The Eliminate Project. What are they eliminating? Turns out that various Catholic mission groups that are pro-vaccine, that have been administering these vaccines to young women across Africa, sent some of these vaccines to laboratories for analysis of their composition. And there, they were shocked to find that a very high percentage of these vaccines are being laced with covert sterilization chemicals.
Not the sterilizers?
This is openly admitted. In fact, they blew the whistle on this. They went public with it. The U.S. media didn't report this. But outside the U.S., this is widely reported. In fact, we've covered it on Natural News. The Catholic bishops in Kenya, they actually urged the Kenyan Ministry of Health to block vaccines from UNICEF and the World Health Organization, because the World Health Organization approves of these covert sterilization vaccines. Isn't that interesting? Now, where are these vaccines given? Are they given in Boulder, Colorado, which is predominantly white? No. No such covert sterilization chemicals in Boulder, Colorado. Are these vaccines found in Salt Lake City, Utah? Are they trying to eliminate Mormons? No. No such covert sterilization chemicals in Salt Lake City, Utah. Where are they found? They're found in vaccines given to young women in Mexico, Nicaragua, the Philippines, and Africa. So the covert sterilization chemicals just happen to show up in countries with either black people or brown people, and these vaccines are all approved by the World Health Organization and other such groups that operate at the global level. Isn't that interesting? Do you think that's coincidence? Because I challenge you. If you think that's coincidence, you're not connecting the dots.
Hi, I'm Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I'm so sorry that I couldn't be there in person with you today, but I have an illness in my family that kept me at home. I want to congratulate Minister Farrakhan on the 20th anniversary of the Million Men March, and also thank the minister for having me here to speak to you today. Minister Farrakhan has asked me to address the issue of vaccines and African American and vaccine safety. I want to start out by saying this, and I want to say it emphatically. I am pro-vaccine. I have always been fiercely pro-vaccine. I had all 6 of my children vaccinated, and I believe that we ought to have policies that encourage full vaccination for all Americans. But to accomplish that goal, we need a honest regulatory agency, we need a transparent process, and we need vaccines that all of us know are safe, are the safest possible vaccines that we can have. We do not have those things today. There have been 4 separate studies by the federal government, by the United States Congress, a 3-year study, a 1-year study by the United States Senate, a study in 2008 by the Inspector General of HHS. and a study last year by the Office of Research Integrity, and all of those studies have said the same thing. They've said that the vaccine division at CDC is a cesspool of corruption. The reason for that is because of financial conflicts of interest between people who work at the vaccine division and the vaccine industry. And you ask how this happened, and I'll tell you. In 1986, Congress, having accepted millions of dollars of vaccine industry money, of pharma industry money, passed a law that made it illegal for any American to sue a vaccine company, no matter how dangerous the vaccine, no matter how sick the person got, no matter how reckless or negligent the company was, you can't sue them. And that emboldened the industry, and it emboldened the regulatory agency. It suddenly made vaccines immensely profitable. So when I was a little boy, I got 5 vaccines. My children got 69 vaccines. How did all these new vaccines happen? They began happening after Congress passed that law in 1989. All of these new vaccines came on the schedule, and many of them were not properly tested, and they had mercury in them. Mercury was 1,000 times more neurotoxic than lead, and you know what lead does to a child's brain. Well, this is far more toxic. In fact, and most of the mercury has been taken out of the children's vaccines today. But it still remains in the flu vaccines that is being given to your children and to pregnant women. And the amounts of mercury in those vaccines are hundreds of times, in some cases thousands of times, what a little child's brain can take. So the message I would leave with you today is that before you take your vaccine, ask your doctor and make sure that there is no mercury in that vaccine. You know, in the multi-dose vials of vaccine, if a doctor drops that bottle on the floor and it breaks, that legally he is obligated to evacuate the building, bring in a hazmat crew with moon suits and respirators, and clean up that bottle. So why? It's illegal to dispose of it into a sewer system. So why would you give that same substance to an infant child or a pregnant woman? And the problem is, with African Americans, the vaccines that have the mercury in them tend to end up in your communities. Now, in 1972, my uncle, Senator Edward Kennedy, ended the Tuskegee experiment, which many of you have heard about. The Tuskegee experiment was a 40-year experiment that CDC conducted by allowing Black African Americans who had syphilis to not be treated, to lie to them about their disease because they wanted to see what would happen during the progression of that disease until you died from it. So these people that they were experimenting on gave the syphilis to their wives, they gave it to their children, and they died of it themselves. And there was a whistleblower in CDC who was also African American. Nobody would listen to him. Nobody in Congress, nobody in the Senate, nobody in the press. And he went to my uncle, Senator Edward Kennedy, and my uncle held hearings on the Tuskegee experiment and shut it down. And we passed legislation promising it would never happen again. And Bill Clinton, when he was president, apologized to the victims of the Tuskegee experiment and promised we will never do experimentation on African Americans again. Well, guess what? In August of last year, another CDC whistleblower came forward, Dr. William Thompson, the senior scientist at CDC's vaccine division. And Dr. Thompson said that he handed 100,000 pages of incriminating documents over to Congress. And he said on tape and in deposition that he and all of the scientists in CDC vaccine division have been ordered for 10 years to lie to the public about the connection between autism and vaccines, and particularly mercury in vaccines. And one of the things he said specifically, he talked about a study that he was one of the authors on in 2004, and there were 4 authors, including Frank DiStefano, the branch chief at CDC. And And when they were doing that study, they were looking at the impact of a certain vaccine, of the MMR vaccine, on children, all kinds of children, including African American children. And what he found was that the children who were, what the data showed, what the scientists found was that the children who received that vaccine on time, in other words, younger than 36 months, younger than 3 years, had a 240% greater chance of getting autism than the children who waited a little. Only African American children were affected. And what they got into a room and they saw what this data said. They saw that it said that it proved that these vaccines, these mercury vaccines particularly, were causing autism. And they said, we cannot allow this to get out. So they ordered a trash can into that room and they dumped all of the documents into the trash can about African American boys. And for 14 years, they have continued to lie to the public about what this study said and about what they saw. Until this whistleblower, who was one of the authors of the study and who was conscience-stricken, came forward in August. And
that's a different white man telling the same thing about vaccinations, saying CDC, no. Well, if they take in biomass material from dead fetuses of African babies and using that to make a vaccine for it that impacts and affects black people more than anybody else, that's a weaponized, that's chemical warfare, yo. That's chemical warfare. Now, you don't think that they can fucking pinpoint the genetic markers that produce melanin? Who produces melanin? Okay, well, if we get the vaccination from your ass and pump you with this shit, of course it's going to affect you more. And we're going to put all this mercury and squalene and cancer cells and everything in this shit in sterilization agents. Oh, your kid gonna be autistic. It's sad. You gotta laugh at it sometimes, man. Motherfuckers is Fusa. It's motherfucking genocide.
They're black people or brown people. And these vaccines are all approved by the World Health Organization and other such groups that operate at the global level. Isn't that interesting? Do you think that's coincidence? Because I challenge you. If you think that's coincidence, you're not connecting the dots. A few years ago in the United States, a top scientist for the CDC, Centers for Disease Control, the vaccine-pushing group in the government, top scientist named Dr. William Thompson, went public through a legal firm, posted an admission of guilt, said that he and his colleagues, while working at the CDC, had taken part in a massive scientific fraud, a cover-up, where they found a 340% higher risk of autism in young African American boys under the age of 3 who were given these vaccines versus non-black children. A 340% increased risk of autism. Now, those of you who are watching this, if you're part of the black community, you know autism is an epidemic across black communities in America today.
My son is autistic.
You know that. How many young, and they're mostly boys, aren't they?
Yeah.
Mostly boys.
Yeah.
How many young black boys
gotta get them,
have had their brains
gotta get them early. We living in this information age. Motherfuckers got this new shit called the conscious community. Everybody's starting to say that they're woke. Man, they might start teaching these little black nigglets some shit. And then if that happens, oh my God, we could have another Malcolm X or Dr. King. Gotta nip this shit in the bud right now. Give all these little niggers autism. Make them dumb. Tell them they're ADHD. Put them in remedial classes. Get them hooked on pills early. Get them out there in the streets, slinging some drugs. Let's get these motherfuckers some felonies and lock their asses up. I will not have another Malcolm X coming out this fucking generation. Oh, it'll be okay, man. I'm just biding my time. I know it's coming. Oh, I know it's coming. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That will only validate me. You see, I told you. They blocked my channel. I must have said something that hurt the system, boy. Hey, all y'all guilty by association. I keep trying to tell y'all that shit. Y'all think, oh, it's just me. Okay. Y'all think it's just me, right? And everybody watching this, y'all just free and in the clear, huh? That motherfucker gonna knock on your door. Yeah. So we see here that you subscribe to a YouTube channel called Art and Education. Are you some kind of fucking domestic terrorist or something? Why are you even watching this type of content? Come here. We're gonna have to take you down to the precinct. Have a talk with you. No. You don't need a fucking lawyer. I'm just gonna talk.
Damaged by the vaccine industry with the knowledge of the CDC, the knowledge that they are harming disproportionately black children, but not so many white children. Now, there are white children who are autistic, but the numbers for black children are disproportionately much higher, 340% higher. Now, the CDC knew about this. They had this information. They knew the results, and they chose to cover it up. And one of their scientists went public with it. Blew the whistle. Now, the entire mainstream media in America, NPR, Washington Post, New York Times, CNN, everybody, they all covered it up. They all blacklisted the news. They decided not to report this altogether, which shows you, by the way, that they have no journalism. They are fake news. They don't do real investigations. They chose not to cover this. Actually, I happen to know they were ordered not to cover this. The CDC issues orders to the media, by the way. They order the media when to spread panic about outbreaks. They order the media when to not say something about dangers of vaccines. The CDC is a criminal operation. And just as a quick side note, a Democrat, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., has now called for the extradition of a CDC vaccine science fraud artist who fled the country.
That's the other guy we were just listening to, that Kennedy guy. Yeah, motherfuckers, and these are white dudes, man. You know what I'm saying? This is what I call a non-racist white person. You got to do some shit like this for me to not think you're racist. If you're not actively speaking out, trying to educate, trying to push that issue of look at the disproportionate abuse, subjugation, lack of everything on so many levels that the black man in this country receives, and the shit that we are subjected to. You know what I'm saying? If you're not actively speaking out, trying to make a difference, as a white person, trying to educate the white community on how fucked up the white community is, then you're racist. If you're sitting there, if you know what's going on and you're silent, and then you're complacent and you're going right along with the system, and you're reaping the benefits. Like this dude right here said, look, man, I gotta carry a gun. Motherfuckers is trying to kill me for telling y'all niggas this shit. And I'm a white dude. I got credentials, man. I got all my degrees and doctorates. I could be sitting comfy somewhere, but I can't. I know the truth. I gotta tell y'all niggas this shit. And they trying to kill me over this. Now, that dude not racist. He not racist at all. You know what I'm saying? Oh, yeah. I know I'm being watched. Yeah, this dude is kicking some knowledge. Like I say, this man got a family. His career is probably fucked up. You know, been debarred and can't practice medicine wherever just because he's going around telling motherfuckers this shit, yo. I thought I saved that paint from that last palette. No, don't fall. Oh yeah, there it is. I put my finger right in it. That's how I find paint. You gotta look for it, man. You gotta get it in there, man. You gotta get in there. Grab that shit, boy. Grab it by the motherfucking buckle. Blue. Well, what blue is it? Well, it's a mixture of blues. It's a little bit of this and a little bit of that. I call it Jay-Z blue. Jay-Z has a color. It's funny. These weird ass numbers call, then you answer it, don't say nothing, the motherfuckers just hang up. Because it's that voice automated shit. They're waiting for you to say hello, and then a little speaker computer thing kicks in. Hi, I'm not a computer. I'm a really, really, really good recording. Now, I just wanted to let you know that all your debts and credit cards can be paid off by sending me your routing number and your banking information.
Millions of dollars in taxpayer money and has been hiding out in Europe. His name is Paul Thorson, and he worked with the CDC to fabricate fake vaccine safety studies. And he's a fugitive from justice. The CDC is a criminal organization. So they covered this up, knowing that it damaged black babies 340% more than white babies. Are you still telling me this is all coincidence? Really? What causes the damage in black children? Turns out that there are genetic differences between babies who come from predominantly African ancestry versus the...
Damn, this dude about to kick that real fucking knowledge, yo. This white man about to be on it. And I've said this over and over and over again. Yes, we're all humans. We're all a part of the human family. But black people are a little bit special. Like, genetically, you can identify us because we make color in our fucking skin. And if you don't think they can build chemicals and viruses that can attack that certain part of us, because it is so distinct and it's not with them. Well, it affects, these vaccines give black kids autism 300-something% more than white kids. Why? Because white kids don't have the genetic marker to produce melanin, and these vaccines don't attack their systems the same way it attacked our systems. Genetically, we are not the fucking same. If your ancestry is real strongly, deeply rooted African, man, you are made for this planet. And shit affects you differently. It just does. And there's no fucking way around that shit, yo. You're special, you're different. And they do science to find these differences so they can exploit us. And why do our boys get autism so much more from the same vaccines? Because we're black. Simple as that. They program their vaccines, the chemicals in that shit, to attack us. And it won't attack a white person the same way.
Of more European ancestry, and that those genetic differences offer various expressions of predisposition to clearing mercury from your body. And so many of these black babies, they can't clear mercury out as quickly as the white babies. And when they're all injected with mercury, which is what happens because thimerosal is a mercury preservative still used in vaccines given to pregnant women in America and given to children in America, the white babies can clear out the mercury very quickly and they suffer little or no damage most of the time. The black babies, the mercury continues to circulate in their bodies and brains for days or weeks, sometimes months. And they can be permanently harmed and brain damaged, and they can be made autistic, and it is happening every day in America. And the vaccine industry went to Congress several years ago and got absolute legal immunity granted to their entire industry for any vaccine listed on the childhood immunization schedule. So if you're a black mother, a black father, your child, perfectly healthy, normal, has a great future, and that child, let's say they're 2 years old, you take them in to get vaccinated because the doctor told you to vaccinate your children, right? You get that child vaccinated, sometimes 48 hours later, boom, that child's brain damaged for life, autistic for life. And you can't sue the manufacturer for their faulty product because Congress conspired with the vaccine companies to grant them all legal immunity. You can't even take your case to court. The U.S. Supreme Court already ruled on that. You can't take your case to a regular court. You have to go to a secret vaccine court run by the vaccine industry that denies almost all claims. And even then, by the way, even though they deny almost all claims, the vaccine court has paid out over $3 billion to victims of vaccine damage that were proven to have been damaged by vaccines. If the truth about this came out, and if families of autistic children, especially in the black community, were able to really take their cases to court and seek justice through the legal system, it would bankrupt the entire pharmaceutical industry, which is what should happen, by the way. The vaccine industry specifically allows damage to happen to black babies. And that's if they survive abortion. You know how hard it is to be conceived as a black child and make it through gestation and be born alive and not be murdered, and then to make it through the vaccines, and then to make it through the psychiatric medicine and everything else. It's incredibly difficult just to survive. And that is on purpose.
And then after that, if you survive long enough, nigga, you might get choked to death for trying to sell a cigarette. You might get shot to death for trying to sell a CD. You know what I'm saying? Even making it through all that shit, it don't never end. The shit don't never end. It don't never end, yo. I got white neighbors. A couple weeks ago, my damn neighbor called me a fucking nigga. Till my looked me dead in my eyes and said, I ain't nothing but a fucking nigga. This shit don't never end, bruh. That's life. When you living as a black man, you already, bruh, the shit is stacked up against you. I'm telling you right now. You already on the losing team. Y'all trying to figure out how to hustle it up. You know what I'm saying? Hustle, nigga, hustle, get it together. The odds is not in your favor. Ever since before you was in the goddamn womb, nigga. Before you was even conceived, they was trying to kill your ass. They trying to find a way to kill you before you even are conceived. And that's real rap. Yo, real rap. And I tell my son that shit, yo. Go out here and act like a nigga if you want to. That's what they want you to do. So they can kill your little ass. Bro, this game is not for you. You gotta learn how to play that game and then learn this extra layer on top of that shit so you can maneuver through that shit. Learn how to play stupid. Sit in there, yes sir, okay, and you get them A's and you slide through their education system. And I'm gonna give you that extra shit you need. The shit that the motherfucker ain't teach me when I was 13, 14, 15 years old. And we gonna get the fuck out this shit. I'm not gonna keep playing this fucking game forever. I don't need to feel like my son, you know, just the nation is trying to keep my seeds from fucking growing. My seed gonna fucking grow.
Because the science and medical establishments are working deliberately.
Long time ago, my son was in elementary, I was already on this shit for years, bruh. 3rd grade, my son was going to 3rd grade. Yo, stopping this vaccination shit, bruh. You know what I'm saying? I got religious exemption forms. That's all you got to do. Your kids can still go to school without having taken the state vaccinations. They don't have to do it. You go get a religious exemption form from your local health department. You fill it out, take it to your courthouse, you get it notarized by the court, take that shit to your fucking school, give that shit to the fucking principal, and tell them that's the last time my son or my daughter has to get vaccinated to attend your school. Simple as that. No more vaccines.
To exterminate black people from this planet, to wipe you out from human civilization. They're doing it. It's happening right now. Now, continuing with the vaccine agenda to exterminate blacks from the world, you need to know something about polio and polio vaccines. There are two ways you can get polio. One is to catch it from a wild circulating polio virus. Second way is to get it from a polio vaccine. It's a well-known phenomenon. It's called vaccine-induced polio. Now, when they inject children with polio, or they do nasal vaccines or other forms of vaccines, not all the vaccines are fully attenuated, which means weakened. They're not all fully weakened. Some of them have live viruses. So sometimes when they're giving vaccines to children in large numbers, some small percentage of those children are going to be infected with the disease, with polio. It's called vaccine-induced polio. Now recently, 355 children were vaccinated in Syria, Middle Eastern country, right? 355,000 children vaccinated against polio. Why were they vaccinated? Because there was a polio outbreak. What caused the polio outbreak? Polio vaccine. This was a vaccine-induced polio outbreak that was then treated with more vaccines. Now, 355,000 children were then injected. If 1 out of 1,000 children it catches polio from a polio vaccine, then didn't they just create 355 more children with polio? Yes, they did. And that will be reported as an outbreak, and someone will call for the World Health Organization or UNICEF to come in and vaccinate, 1 million children, whatever it takes. You see, the vaccines are the continuation of the disease that they claim to stop. Now, if you understand epidemiology, statistics, science, and medicine, it is true that in a population, let's say you have 1 million children, and let's say polio is endemic. Let's say half the children in the country have polio. In that case, because the infection rate is so high, a polio vaccine can drastically bring down that infection rate and save far more lives than it would terminate because the rate of infection is so high. But that same vaccine, when the rate of infection is very low, if you give that vaccine to large numbers of children, hundreds of thousands or millions, you will create more disease than you halt. The same vaccine. It all has to do with how many children are currently infected versus how many you're actually vaccinating. If you vaccinate a lot of children who are not infected, you're going to cause infections, you're going to cause outbreaks. And this is what is used in Africa. This is what is used across the world to keep the disease process going, so they can keep manufacturing vaccines, which are, remember, made from aborted black babies. We're talking human fetal cell tissue. They take it from the babies. They take it from the abortions. Planned Parenthood sells it to these companies. And they put it in large vats, and they inoculate it with viral strains, and they grow and fester a large amount of biomass of disease material. And then they homogenize that with tissue homogenizers. They filter that, put it into vaccine vials with other ingredients that are toxic, like aluminum or squalene or mercury, and then they inject that into other kids. We are living in a world, people, wake up and understand this. We are living in a world where they are murdering and grinding up black babies to feed them to other babies. This is like the Matrix. This is medical cannibalism. It's actually happening every day. Many of these vaccines are made from human fetal tissue that's harvested from aborted black babies. And you know what? A lot of the doctors don't even know it. A lot of the pharmacists don't even know it because they've never read the ingredients of a vaccine. They don't even know. All you gotta do is go to the CDC, read the ingredients, FDA website, it's all right there. It's all out in the open, but no one wants to believe it because it's too horrifying. It's too evil. A recent study funded by the CDC, literally run by the CDC, using CDC money and CDC scientists, found that vaccines cause spontaneous abortions. So they're pushing vaccines on the pregnant women, right? You've heard that recently? All pregnant women are encouraged to go out and get multiple vaccines, which never was taught in medicine until the last 20 years. Before that, doctors were told, no, you never vaccinate a pregnant woman. That could harm a child, the unborn baby. Now they're like, oh, you're pregnant? Get get shot up with vaccines, take antidepressant drugs, take chemotherapy, just poison the crap out of your body. Don't worry, it doesn't affect the baby. But it does. Because these medical liars are genocidal, homicidal maniacs. They're deceiving you. They're lying to you. They know that vaccines cause spontaneous abortions. It's just been admitted by the CDC. Now, we've covered this study on naturalnews.com. I want you to go there and I want you to read it, and we link directly to the journal, and I think the journal is Vaccines, by the way, where this study was published. You can read it yourself. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's openly admitted by the CDC. Vaccines cause spontaneous abortions. One more population control mechanism. Oh, by the way, speaking of population control, let me give you a couple of websites before I get to the last and most shocking point in all of this. We've got 3 websites that you can check out where you can learn more about this every day. Okay, depopulation.news, genocide.news, and eugenics.news. These are all .news domains. But again, depopulation, genocide, and eugenics, all .news. Go there. There's going to be some overlap of articles there, but your eyes will be opened. You will come to see the truth about what's actually happening. And if you are black or African American and you're listening to this, you need to know the truth about how you are being targeted for extermination. You and your children, and your grandchildren, and your parents, you are all being targeted for extermination. Now, to some extent, we are all being targeted in different ways, because there is a depopulation agenda that wants to reduce the entire global population.
See, this man right here is the truth. He know everybody. He and that's what I tell people too, man. He hitting on all this black people, but he's like, look, white people, y'all motherfuckers ain't safe neither. This is a global agenda. I tell white people, white supremacy is bad for white people. You think that 1% of motherfuckers who got access to blood scrubbers and life extension technology and who are bloodline bank members who actually print money for nations, you think these motherfuckers care about you? When Monsanto's putting GMOs in your diet and the deep states are spraying chemtrails in the air and putting fluoride in your fucking water and squalene in your vaccines, they don't care about white people either. They don't care about none of us, yo, at all. Everybody is a useless eater. It's just that blacks are harder to kill. We kind of like roaches, you know what I'm saying? So they got to try real hard. They got to come up with all kind of extra shit to kill us. But we just keep coming back. Niggas don't die. We multiply, niggas multiply. Damn, these motherfuckers, we done enslaved them. We done took they whole home nations. We done changed their languages. We done stole their gods. We raped and imprisoned them. These motherfuckers won't give up. God damn. We gave them AIDS. That shit ain't slow them down none. I don't know what to do. These niggas.
To about 1 billion people. But it seems, from observing the way they're doing this, they sure do want to get rid of black people first. And they're actively doing it. It's happening right now. It's right under your nose. Most people have no clue that it's going on. And you've got Black Lives Matter out there marching for social justice. Completely oblivious to everything I just said.
Damn, dude, I like this guy.
Where's Black Lives Matter talking about the abortion industry, or the vaccine industry, or the psychiatric medication of young black kids, or the autism epidemic, or the use of black children for medical experiments? Black Lives Matter doesn't touch any of those things.
No, they don't.
They might bash some heads with some speech that they don't like. Maybe take down a couple of Nazis or some white supremacists. You know, bash some white hoods out there. They might have a little bit of success at that, but guess what? You're still being exterminated because it's in the food, it's in the medicine. The scientific community is working to exterminate you. Hey, your enemy is not even the Nazis and the white supremacists. It's the scientists. It's the pharmacology evildoers. It's the drug companies. It's the vaccine companies. It's the abortion providers. That's who's killing you. All All right, in 1969, New York Times ran an article authored by Gladwin Hill. That's his name, Gladwin Hill. He's the author. You can look this up. The article is entitled, "A Sterility Drug in Food is Hinted." The article cited a scientist named Paul Ehrlich, who's a depopulation advocate, as well as the chief science advisor for then President Richard Nixon. And his name, the science advisor, is, let's see, Dr. Lee Dubridge. And he said, quote, listen to this quote very carefully. He said, quote, "Population control should be the prime task of every government." Here's how they were going to accomplish this. This is all in the New York Times in 1969. I've reprinted the article at naturalnews.com. If you want to see this, you can read it for yourself. You can convince yourself. I'm not making this up. This is all on the record. Okay? He said, quote, "The addition of a temporary sterilant to staple foods or to the water supply would be the way to achieve mandatory infertility." Did you catch that? In 1969, they called for secretly inserting sterilization chemicals into the food supply and the water supply to depopulate the planet. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's in the New York Times, 1969. Same year we landed a man on the moon, right? Advanced technology. What do they want to do with it? They want to exterminate blacks with it. Now, notice they called for adding this covert sterilization chemical to the food supply and the water supply. But what has happened since then? Lead poisoning in Flint, Michigan.
Yep, fluoride in the water.
It's a damaging chemical in the water supply, isn't it? It's right out of the playbook from 1969. This is part of the plan. And that's just one time they got caught. What about the tetanus vaccines in Africa that were found to be contaminated with a sterilization chemical? Same thing. They were going to hide it in the food and the water. Now they're putting it in the vaccines. It's all consistent. Oh, and by the way, that chemical that they found in the vaccines is called beta-BCG. Beta-BCG. Let me describe this to you, all right? Beta-BCG causes the female body to have an immune system response that builds antibodies that destroy her own fetus if she gets pregnant. Do you realize that through this chemical that they secretly insert into the vaccines, they can cause a black woman's body to turn against itself and to murder its own baby in absolute violation of natural law and biblical principles and medical morality and everything else? And they were putting this sterilization chemical into these vaccines without the informed consent of the women who were being sterilized. This is evil medicine. This is evil science. This is genocide in the name of vaccines for public safety, right? That's what they tell you. Oh, this is all for public safety? While they're making an African woman's body murder her own baby before it can be born, and they don't tell her about it? That's medicine? That's public safety? That's a Holocaust. It's a Holocaust against blacks across our planet. Now you see why I have to speak this truth? You see why? Wasn't it Edmund Burke who said all that's necessary for evil to prevail is that good men do nothing, right? I'm not going to stand here and be silent. I'm not going to stand here and be intimidated. Those people out there, you know, they can slander, they can defame me all they want, all day and night. Call me anything. Fake news, lies, fake accusations. The truth is that you people are genocidal maniacs trying to kill black babies and turn black women against their own babies. You're trying to turn a woman's womb into a murder system through the use of covert sterilization chemicals. That is a scientific and medical fact. And that's why I'm standing here today, to speak this truth, to put it on the record, so that no one can hide from this fact.
I don't know who your daddy is, but I want to meet that man. I want to shake his
place.
hand. You raised a good son. I don't know how you raised that boy, but you got a good boy there. That boy, that right there, that's a good son right there, boy. You did some fine parenting with this one. This motherfucker actually has morals and values. And
He's standing on a principle. You don't really find that shit in these motherfuckers nowadays. You don't hardly find that shit in nobody nowadays except me. I got morals, values, and I stand on principles. Like this dude, oh, I like this dude. He getting all emotional with that shit. Having African women's bodies murder black babies. That motherfucker about to cry. And all you people out here, you're just evil scientists. That's why I got my scrap, bitch. Y'all come at me again, I'm gonna put a hole in your ass, bitch. I know what you look like. Assassin. Trying to assassinate me. Try to assassinate my character. Try to take my life. Motherfuckers try to Martin Luther King me. About to wrap it up for a minute. Ooh. I'm getting hungry. Ooh, damn, almost 4 hours, 3.5 hours. That ain't bad. About to wrap it up though. Get these brushes straight. Make sure my brush is nice and clean up. Then you take them, you clean them good, then you put some oils in it, keep them soft to the next time. You know? Gotta wax that thing. Keep that thing soft, boy. I need to clean, trade out this thinner too. Alright. Yeah, that shit is ooh, pink, magenta. Alright, got that. Brush is clean. The thinner is draining out. Start turning some shit off. Turn the laptop off. Ooh, damn. Why the tidy, my dammy? So this dress has a lot of lace work here, and down at the bottom, this section right here is actually a lot of lace design. So I'm just going to try to work my way down the dress for today. That's going to be my main focal point. And hopefully tomorrow his suit will be a little bit dry. Maybe I can go back to working on this suit again. If I can't get any more done on this piece for a few days, I'm going back to the coffee shop painting, and I'll get some more done on that painting, and that's going to be my next project, Naked Girl in the Bed. So I'll try to work on that one right there for a day or so if this is too wet. But until this one is done, this is my main project I'm working on. This is a paid commission. Oh shit! And it's coming out nice so far. I'm having a really good time working on it. Enjoying myself. The client is actually has been viewing the stream, so she's checking it out and watching the progress of it, and it seems like she's happy with it so far. And so we're just gonna, you know, same old, take our time with this piece
and gradually add our layers and slowly start adding some details into there. And yeah, it's going to be one of those, another Travis Prince perfect originals. You know, I can't get me in the picture and at the same time. I'm too tall, or the canvas is sitting too low. One of the two. Anyway, man, it don't even be boogers most of the time no more. It's just like my nose hairs. It's weird, man. My nose hairs grow so long, like I can fucking pluck them out like this sometimes. And every time I breathe, I can just feel that one hair like, and it's annoying, and it's like right on the side, and it tickles the fuck out of me. Oh my god. Getting old is weird. Like, your nose hair start growing, you get hair growing in your fucking ears. What is that shit? What is that? I don't need no extra ear hair. My fucking god. I don't think I'm gonna like this getting old shit, honestly. Some people say it's a blast, but hell, shit, I got more chores to do. I got extra grooming duties now. I gotta get myself a shape up, trim my beard, and pluck my goddamn nose hairs. That's time consuming. All right, guys. Almost made it to 4 hours, but we did have a good morning. Didn't do a lot of music today. Most of today was highly educational, believe it or not. Oh, and hey, Miss Carter is still here. That's what's up. That's what's up. So yeah, today was a lot of good education. We had some really good conversations to start with, and listened to some really interesting facts. And I got a good bit done on this canvas today, so a lot of detailing on the dress itself. We got a nice coat on that background. Like I said, I may want to pull the purple a little bit more to the edge. We'll see about that. There's still some more details I want to add to that background, and but yeah, got a good bit done today. So it was overall. I enjoy myself in the stream every day. It was a nice stream today. We ain't had no trolls. I was waiting on the troll to come in and start kicking some bullshit. You know, that'd be exciting for me sometimes. We ain't getting no trolls in here. I just like that. It was a good show. I just want to say I appreciate everybody stopping in, chilling with me, hanging out, watching the progress on this project. If this is your first time to the stream, welcome again. I appreciate you stopping in. If you enjoy what you like, if you enjoyed the stream and liked it a lot, definitely subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm trying to hit 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year. If you're on the PlayStation like I am, definitely follow me on the PlayStation Network. My gamer tag is Trap House Entertainment. And I think that's about it. I definitely am going to come back and work on this some more today, because I can do some more to the dress. I don't know if I'm going to stream it later this afternoon. I might just sit in here and get like a couple hours of solid paint time in. If I do stream it, definitely come back and chill with me this afternoon. Trying to think what else. I think that's about it. Always remember though, work towards your own dreams. If you're not working towards your own dreams, you're working towards somebody else's, and that does you no good at all. You know what I'm saying? Some fucking corporate CEO guy, that's his dream, and he gets other people to do the shit he wants. You know, so whatever your dream is, work towards your own dreams. You are important. You have to focus on yourself sometimes. Work towards your own dreams. Always keep a positive attitude. That's one of my biggest philosophies. No matter what is going on, always try to stay positive. Always try to stay motivated. And yeah, hope everybody have a good day. I say there's a good chance I'll be back here this afternoon and stream it again. Just make sure everything is off. That's off. That's off. Turn the AC off. All right, air conditioner's off. All right, guys. Peace. Till next time. Oh, wrong thing. Wrong button. My bad. I hit the wrong button. Alright, for real. Alright, peace.